The tenant was under the kitchen sink when Leah arrived to evict him. She could see only his boots and the knees of his jeans, one pressed against a folded dish towel on the stone floor. A flashlight lay beside his hip. Water ticked steadily into a blue enamel pot. "You've got to be Daniel Mercer," she said. The wrench stopped turning. "And you've got to be June's granddaughter who inherited a pipe she didn't know was leaking." His voice was calm, almost friendly, which irritated her more than defensiveness would have. Leah tightened her hand around the cottage key. Her father's words had followed her for 90 miles. "It's not a gift, honey. It's a burden with a deadbeat living in it. I need to talk to you about the rent." Daniel slid out far enough to look up at her. He had gray at one temple, water on his sleeve, and the exhausted expression of a man meeting a disaster he had already been expecting. "I paid your grandmother. There are no deposits. I didn't pay her in money." Outside, rain ran down the old windows without finding a way through. The glass was wavy, but perfectly seated in fresh putty. Leah noticed that, because the same windows had rattled so badly when she was young, that June used to stuff newspaper into the gaps. Daniel nodded toward them. "I paid her in repairs." 2 days earlier, the cottage had been reduced to a joke before Leah knew it belonged to her. The family was sitting around a walnut conference table in an office that smelled faintly of dust and burnt coffee. June Bennett's funeral had ended less than 3 hours before, and Leah could still feel damp cemetery grass inside her shoes. Her mother had set her black handbag on the table as if guarding it from thieves. Her father kept loosening his tie and then retightening it without noticing. Caroline had brought a yellow legal pad. Of course she had. At 33, Leah's sister had a way of arriving at grief with office supplies. She had already made lists for flowers, food, donation acknowledgments, and the return of rented folding chairs. During the reception, she had moved through June's house collecting abandoned cups, while Leah stood at the sink washing a spoon that was already clean. "Do we need to discuss the furniture today?" Caroline asked. The attorney, Mr. Bell, adjusted his glasses. "Only the distribution specified by your grandmother. The rest can wait until the estate inventory is complete." "Good," Elaine said quickly. "Nobody is in the right frame of mind." Paul glanced toward the window. "Your mother was never in the right frame of mind about that furniture. She had 3 broken lamps." "They weren't broken," Elaine said. "They needed rewiring. That is one of the ways a lamp can be broken." Caroline wrote something down. Leah looked at her sister's neat block letters, but couldn't read them upside down. The meeting was not a dramatic unveiling. June had not left riddles, recorded messages, or instructions to gather at midnight. Mr. Bell read practical sentences in a dry voice. Caroline received the jewelry June had inherited from her own mother, along with a portion of the investment account. Paul, June's only son, was the principal beneficiary of the main house and remaining acreage. There were charitable gifts, small bequests, and a savings bond June had somehow forgotten existed. Then Mr. Bell said, "The stone cottage and its delineated parcel passed directly to Leah Morgan Bennett." Caroline's pen paused. Leah thought she had misheard him. "The cottage by the woods?" "There's only one stone cottage," Paul said. Elaine touched his sleeve. "Paul, what?" "There is," Mr. Bell continued, but Leah caught only phrases. "Separate tax lot, existing tenancy, contents accepted." The words floated near her and failed to connect. She could picture the cottage as it had been during childhood visits. Mossy stone walls, a sagging back step, a chimney that smoked into the room whenever the wind came from the east. June had once rented it to a retired music teacher who played the same scale on a clarinet for 20 minutes every morning. After he moved away, it had sat empty for years. "There's a tenant?" Caroline asked. "Yes," Mr. Bell said. "Daniel Mercer. Is he current?" Mr. Bell looked down at his file. "The tenancy arrangement was managed directly by your grandmother." That was not an answer, and everyone at the table knew it. Paul made a low sound through his nose. "Mercer. That handyman she was always feeding?" "I think he did work for her," Leah said. "He was supposed to do work for her," Paul replied. "Mr." Bell removed his glasses and cleaned one lens with a cloth. "I can only advise Leah to speak with the tenant and review whatever records Mrs. Bennett maintained." Caroline turned a page on her legal pad. "What's the cottage worth?" "Not much," Paul said. "Not in its current condition." "You don't know its current condition," Leah said. Her father looked at her then, not angrily. Paul rarely needed anger. He could dismiss a person with concerns so gentle it felt like being covered with a blanket. "I know old stone houses," he said. They're charming until you own one. Elaine attempted a smile. Your grandmother loved it. She loved everything that required constant attention. No one spoke for a moment. Leah stared at the polished table and saw June's hand resting on hers 3 weeks earlier. The skin had been thin and cool, the nails filed into soft ovals. June had asked if Leah was eating enough. Leah had lied. June had asked about her apartment. Leah had lied again. The truth was that her roommate, Nicole, was moving in with her boyfriend at the end of the month, and Leah could not cover the rent alone. The hospital had reduced kitchen hours after contracting out part of food preparation. Leah was applying for purchasing jobs, supervisory jobs, anything with a schedule that did not change every Thursday, but so far she had collected 12 automated rejections, and one interview during which a man half her age had asked if she was comfortable with urgency. Leah was comfortable with 300 trays leaving a kitchen on time, while a freezer alarm shrieked and 2 cooks argued about chicken stock. She had said yes. He had written something down. After the meeting, Mr. Bell gave Leah an envelope with a key taped to an index card. The card bore June's handwriting, Stone House Front. The S leaned too far to the right. In the parking lot, Caroline caught up with her. Well, she said. Well, what? You own a house, a cottage, a house-shaped object. Leah gave her a tired look. Caroline tucked the legal pad beneath her arm. She was still wearing the pearl earrings June had given her on her 30th birthday. They looked right on her. That was the annoying thing. Nothing was ever merely unfair. Caroline had called June every Sunday. She had paid for the new refrigerator in the main house. She had also spent the past month referring to the funeral reception as an event. I'm not making fun of it, Caroline said. I'm trying to figure out whether to congratulate you. Give it a week. Fair. For a second, they almost smiled. Then Paul came out carrying a file box Mr. Bell had given him. Elaine followed, struggling into her raincoat. We should go back to the house, Elaine said. There's enough ham to feed a military installation. Paul put the box in his trunk. Leah, don't go making promises to that tenant. I haven't met him. Exactly. Paul, Elaine said again, softer this time. He shut the trunk. Mom let people take advantage. We all know that. Leah looked toward Caroline, expecting at least a raised eyebrow, but her sister was checking an email. How much rent does he owe? Leah asked. That's the problem, Paul said. There's no record of him paying any. I went through Mom's bank statements when I started helping with her bills. Nothing from Mercer for 22 months. Maybe he paid cash. Then, where are the receipts? Leah looked at the envelope in her hand. Paul's face softened. I'm not trying to ruin this for you. But the taxes, insurance, repairs, you don't have room in your budget for surprises. If you transfer it back into the estate, we can bundle it with the land when we sell. Clean and simple. Transfer it back? You don't have to decide today, Elaine said. Paul shrugged. No, but we shouldn't pretend it's some magical little inheritance. It's a burden. Mom left Leah the only thing nobody else can use. The words were so casually delivered that no one reacted at first. Elaine looked down. Caroline stopped scrolling. Paul seemed to hear himself only after the sentence had finished. That came out wrong. Leah slid the key into her coat pocket. Did it? At June's house, people had already begun putting things into the wrong places. Foil-covered casseroles filled the refrigerator. Someone had stacked sympathy cards beside the toaster. Elaine walked from room to room with a trash bag, throwing away paper plates and saving plastic forks. Leah escaped to June's bedroom. The bed had been made by a neighbor, tightly and without sentiment. June's blue cardigan still hung over the chair. Leah picked it up and pressed it to her face, then felt foolish because it smelled mostly of laundry detergent. She sat on the edge of the mattress. There had been no final cinematic conversation between them. June's last clear words to Leah had been, "That vending machine charges $1.85 for crackers," followed by, "Don't you dare." Leah had bought them anyway. June ate 4. Now, Leah owned the stone cottage, and her parents wanted her to give it back before she saw it. A soft knock sounded against the doorframe. Caroline stepped inside. Mom wants to know if you took Grandma's cardigan. I'm holding it. I'll report that the cardigan has been located. Leah started to hand it over, but Caroline shook her head. Keep it. Mom's just in that phase where every object has to answer roll call. Caroline leaned against the dresser. Without the legal pad, she looked less certain. Dad really did mean well, she said. He has an interesting way of arranging words. He's worried you'll get stuck. Are you worried? Yes. At least Caroline said it plainly. Leah folded the cardigan across her lap. Did Grandma ever mention Daniel Mercer to you? The cottage guy? Once or twice. I thought he was a contractor. Dad thinks he's a squatter with a wrench. Dad thinks anyone who owns more than 4 tools is running a scam. He owns 9 screwdrivers. They came in a set. That's different. Leah laughed before she could stop herself. It felt wrong in the quiet room, then unexpectedly good. Caroline sat beside her, leaving a careful 6 inches between them. Go look at the place. Don't sign anything. Don't let him tell you a sad story before you know what you're dealing with. You think I'm that easy? I think you once kept a ficus alive for 2 years after Nicole told you it was already dead. It grew a leaf. It was plastic, Leah. The ficus was real. The leaf was plastic. Somebody stuck it on as a joke. Exactly. You watered a joke for 2 months. They sat there with their shoulders almost touching. Then Caroline said, "If it's bad, you can walk away." Leah looked at June's cardigan in her hands. That's what everyone keeps telling me. She waited until the day after the funeral to call Daniel. The number Mr. Bell provided went to voicemail. His recorded message said only, "This is Daniel. Leave 1, followed by a beep. Hi, this is Leah Bennett, June's granddaughter." She paused, hating how young she sounded. "I own the cottage now. Apparently. I need to come by and discuss the tenancy. And rent. Please call me back." He did not. She called again that evening, and once the next morning. By noon, irritation had overcome dread. She filled her gas tank with money she should not have spent, packed a turkey sandwich from the funeral leftovers, and drove west beneath a sky the color of wet cement. The road narrowed after the interstate. June's town appeared gradually. A feed store, a white church, a diner with 2 pickup trucks outside. Leah passed the turn for the main house and continued another half-mile to the cottage lane. The wooden sign June used to keep by the road was gone. Brambles had been cut back. Fresh gravel crunched beneath Leah's tires. The cottage emerged between bare trees, low and gray, and smaller than memory. Smoke rose from the chimney. Leah parked beside an old green truck. The rain strengthened as she climbed out, and one heel sank into the soft shoulder of the drive. She swore, yanked it free, and approached with cold water slipping down the back of her collar. The front step did not sag. She stopped with the key in her hand. The oak boards were new, but weathered enough not to announce themselves. Someone had rebuilt the step to the same proportions as the old one. Along the foundation, the weeds had been cleared away, revealing pale, careful lines of mortar between the stones. Leah knocked, no answer. She knocked again, then used June's key. Inside, the cottage smelled of wood smoke, coffee, and something metallic. A man's voice called from the kitchen. "If that's you, Mrs. Duffy, I'm not dead. The truck's there because I'm home." Leah followed the sound and found Daniel Mercer under the sink. Now, as he watched her from the floor, she looked from his wet sleeve to the repaired windows and felt the simple speech she had rehearsed fall apart. "You paid her in repairs," she repeated. "Yes? For 22 months?" His expression changed. Not guilt, something more complicated. "No," he said. "For 22 months your grandmother and I were trying to save this place." Daniel pushed himself upright and reached for a dish towel. He was taller than Leah had expected, though the low ceiling made everyone over 5'9" look temporarily misplaced. He wiped his hands and nodded at the blue pot. "Supply line split. I shut off the valve before it did much damage. You said you were saving the place. I said June and I were trying. From what?" He looked around the kitchen as if the walls might answer for him. "Pick something." Leah did. The sink. Base cabinet was rotten. Floor under it too. Took out the cabinet, sistered 2 joists, patched the subfloor, put the cabinet back. The windows, reglazed last fall. The chimney. Liner, cap, repointed the top 8 courses. "You expect me to believe my grandmother let you skip rent because you fixed her house. This house. Yes, this house. The one you live in." He tossed the damp towel onto the counter. "You want coffee? I want a lease. Coffee's faster." He turned toward a dark green coffee maker beneath the cabinets. Leah watched him fill 2 mugs without asking how she took hers. One was plain white. The other said North Adams Hardware and had a chip near the handle. "I don't want coffee." Daniel put the plain mug in front of her anyway. "Then it'll sit there and feel rejected." Leah remained standing. He took the chair closest to the wood stove, leaving her the one by the window. It was an oddly deliberate courtesy, or perhaps a tactic to make her sit. She stayed where she was. "Mr. Bell said you had an arrangement," she said. "He couldn't tell me what it was. June didn't ask Bell's permission to buy groceries either." "She's dead, Daniel." The sentence struck harder than Leah intended. His eyes went briefly to the mug between his hands. "I'm aware." Rain pressed against the glass. The window did not rattle. Leah pulled out the chair and sat. "All right," she said. "Start with the rent." It was $900 a month. Her eyebrows rose. "For this?" That was my reaction. What did she say? That I was welcome to continue sleeping in my truck. Despite herself, Leah could hear June saying it, not cruelly, just with complete confidence that the next decision belonged to someone else. "I paid the first 3 months in cash," Daniel continued. "Then the back stairs started pulling away from the house. I gave her a price. She said she had more time than cash and asked if I had more skill than cash. And did you? Back then? Considerably. So, you rebuilt the stairs for rent. Stairs came to $1,900 in labor. She credited me 2 months and made me pay the extra 100. Leah glanced at the rear door. Through its rain-blurred panes, she could see a short run of steps leading to a patch of gravel, and after that, windows, porch roof, chimney, kitchen floor, front step, drainage on the north side, the little retaining wall by the drive, for 22 months. Not all of it was rent credit. Some she paid when she could. Some materials I covered and she paid me back. Some jobs took longer because she changed her mind halfway through. That sounds convenient? It was not. I mean, convenient now, when nobody can ask her. Daniel's jaw shifted. He set his mug down carefully. "You think I made this up? I think my grandmother was 81 and sick for most of the last year. She was 82. Leah felt heat move up her neck. "I know how old she was. You just said 81. I meant when this started." "No, you didn't." The room seemed to tighten around them. Daniel stood and carried his coffee to the sink. "June said you were the one who listened. What is that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm disappointed." "You're disappointed in me? I've had a bad week." Leah almost laughed, not because anything was funny, but because his audacity had reached a clean, astonishing height. "Your bad week," she said. "My grandmother died. I learned she left me an old cottage I can't afford, and now the man living in it says he paid rent by fixing the house he gets to live in." Daniel leaned against the counter. "Yes." "Yes, what?" "That is what happened." She pushed her untouched coffee away. "I need to see the rest of the property." He did not object. He took a ring of keys from a hook by the door, pulled on a canvas jacket, and handed her a flashlight. "I have a phone. Basement eats phone batteries." "Basements don't eat batteries." This one's had a lot of practice. He opened a narrow door beside the pantry. Steep wooden stairs descended into darkness. Leah shone the flashlight downward. "You first," she said. A sound that might have been approval escaped him. The basement had a packed stone floor and walls thick enough to survive a small war. Pipes ran beneath the joists in neat copper lines, some bright and new, others dulled with age. Daniel pointed out the shut-off valve, breaker panel, water heater, and a rust-streaked corner where rain had darkened the stones. "That's the problem I haven't solved," he said. "Hard rain comes through there. How bad? Depends on the rain. That isn't an answer. Today, maybe half an inch on the floor. Worst I've seen was 3. What does it cost to fix? If it's only drainage, a few thousand. If the wall needs excavation and resetting, more. How much more? I don't know until I dig." Leah aimed the light at his face. "You've been repairing this place for nearly 2 years and never fixed the wall?" June prioritized the chimney because carbon monoxide is unpopular. "You didn't answer." "No, I didn't fix the wall." The admission landed more heavily than an excuse would have. Back upstairs, he showed her the living room, where the old plaster had been patched but not painted. The wood stove sat on a hearth made of broad gray slabs. Leah remembered the stove leaning slightly to the left when she was younger. It had looked like a drunk little locomotive. "June picked the stone," Daniel said. "She always liked gray. She rejected 12 shades of gray before choosing that gray. That also sounds like her." The words slipped out, and for one moment, they were not adversaries. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. The downstairs room was barely large enough for a bed and dresser. A folded quilt rested at the foot of the bed. June's quilt. Leah recognized the crooked red squares immediately. She stepped inside. Why is that here? Daniel remained in the doorway. She brought it. When? Spring? For you? No. Leah turned. Then why? She stayed here sometimes. The rain ticked softly against the rear windows. My grandmother slept in this room, not often, when the furnace at the main house failed. Once after a storm took out power, a few nights in May. She never told me. She didn't want your mother fussing. My mother would have gotten the furnace fixed. She did. June came back anyway. Leah touched the quilt. The cotton had thinned at the seams, and one red square had been patched with fabric from a man's striped shirt. She remembered lying beneath it during thunderstorms while June counted the seconds between lightning and thunder. Why? Daniel took a moment to answer. She said the main house had too many empty rooms. Leah sat on the edge of the bed. June had lived alone for 6 years after Leah's grandfather died. Elaine had tried to persuade her to move closer. Paul had installed handrails and arranged grocery delivery. Caroline called every Sunday. Leah visited when her shifts allowed, and sometimes when they did not. They had all behaved as if the problem was distance, stairs, groceries, pills. Too many empty rooms had never appeared on one of Caroline's lists. What did she do here? Leah asked. Ate dinner, criticized my coffee, told me where I'd made mistakes. That must have taken hours. Sometimes we stayed up late. Leah looked at him sharply. Daniel's expression did not change, but something in it did. Not offense. Understanding. She was my friend, he said. Nothing strange happened. I didn't think you did for half a second. I don't know you. That's becoming clear. Upstairs was a single bedroom beneath the sloped roof. The bed was made. Work shirts hung from pegs. A shelf held carpentry books, 2 mysteries, and a ceramic bird Leah recognized from June's kitchen windowsill. That was hers too. Daniel looked at the bird. She hated it. She kept it for 30 years. Exactly. She said it had served enough time. Leah reached for it, then stopped. She did not know whether she was reclaiming June's possession or taking something June had deliberately given away. Daniel noticed. You can have it. I don't want it. Neither did she. So, why do you? He shrugged. It knows too much. The joke surprised a laugh out of her. It came out short and unwilling. Daniel looked equally surprised. Then her phone rang. Caroline's name filled the screen. Leah answered. Hi. Are you there? I'm at the cottage. And? Leah glanced at Daniel. He had turned toward the window, granting privacy without leaving. It's standing. High praise. The roof looks okay. The windows are repaired. There's water getting into the basement. Is he there? Yes. Caroline lowered her voice, though she was 90 miles away. Does he seem normal? Daniel looked over his shoulder. Leah walked downstairs. What does that mean? You know what normal means. No, I really don't. Is he aggressive? Is he trying to charm you? Did he immediately produce a tragic explanation for why he doesn't pay rent? He says he does pay. With money? Leah said nothing. Oh, God, Caroline whispered. What is it? Vegetables? Spiritual support? Repairs. There was a pause. Then Caroline said, That's not rent. That's a man fixing the place where he lives. It can be both. According to whom? The 2 people who made the agreement, one of whom is dead. Daniel had followed Leah into the kitchen, but stopped near the pantry. She could feel him listening. Caroline continued, Dad wants you to call him before you agree to anything. I haven't agreed to anything. Good. Don't. Take pictures, get copies of whatever he claims proves this, and leave before dark. I can handle a conversation. I know. Caroline's immediate answer made Leah more defensive, not less. I'll call you later. Leah. What? Please don't confuse the house being less terrible than expected with the situation being good. After the call ended, Leah placed her phone face down on the table. Daniel opened the cabinet beneath the sink and inspected the new supply line. My sister thinks I should photograph everything. She's right. She thinks you're taking advantage. So does your father. Leah watched him tighten the valve. You've spoken to my father? He came by in January. That stopped her. Why? He wanted to inspect the cottage. Did you let him? June told me not to. My father was helping with her finances. She knew. Leah pulled out a chair. What happened? Paul knocked. I called June. She said the cottage was her business and told me to send him home. And you did? I invited him in for coffee first. Why? I didn't want to send an angry man back to his car uncaffeinated. What did he say? That I was living here cheaply and filling June's head with impractical ideas. What ideas? Daniel closed the cabinet doors. That she might move into this cottage. The sentence opened a silence so complete, Leah could hear water moving through the repaired pipe. She planned to leave the main house? She talked about it. To you. Yes. Not to her son. Not to my mother. Not to me. She may have planned to. She had months. She thought she had more. Leah looked away. The plain mug still sat where Daniel had placed it, a pale skin forming on the cold coffee. Where are the records? She asked. Daniel wiped his hands again. What records? The hours, materials, rent credits. You said you gave her prices? I did, so show me. He went still. It was the first time since she arrived that he looked like a man caught without an answer. June kept the notebook, he said. Where? At the main house. Where at the main house? In the kitchen, usually, bottom drawer beside the stove. Leah knew that drawer. It held rubber bands, instruction manuals, takeout menus, birthday candles, and at least 6 pens that did not work. She also knew Elaine had emptied it the morning after June died. The trash bags were already gone. Leah pictured the black garbage truck she had passed near the feed store, its orange lights revolving lazily in the rain. What did the notebook look like? Black cover. Cloth tape on the spine. About this big. Daniel held his hands apart. June wrote Cottage across the front in silver marker. You never kept a copy? Why? Because she owned the house. That didn't stop you from living in it. His mouth flattened. Leah immediately regretted the remark, but not enough to withdraw it. Did either of you sign the totals? At the end of every month. In the notebook. Yes. The notebook my mother probably threw away. Daniel rested both hands against the counter. A faint white scar crossed one knuckle. Then she threw it away? How can you be so calm? I've been accused of enough things to know panic rarely improves the audience. That sounds rehearsed. It is. Leah called Elaine. Her mother answered on the 4th ring, breathless and distracted. Are you all right? I'm fine. Where did the trash from Grandma's kitchen go? A cabinet door closed in the background. The regular collection came this morning. Why? The bottom drawer next to the stove. What did you do with the contents? That awful junk drawer? I cleared it out. What exactly did you throw away? Leah, I don't know. Rubber bands, old coupons, those little plastic clips from bread bags. Why? Was there a black notebook? Elaine was quiet. Mom, I don't remember one. It would have said Cottage on the front. Maybe. There were several old notebooks. Did you look inside them? I was cleaning, sweetheart. Half the house was full of paper. Leah closed her eyes. Grandma had been dead less than a day, and 40 people were coming into her home. The kitchen counters were covered in pill bottles and mail. I was trying to make things presentable. For whom? Daniel turned away and picked up his mug. Elaine's voice changed. The breathlessness vanished. I'm not going to defend cleaning my mother-in-law's kitchen after spending 12 hours organizing her funeral. Leah pressed her fingers to her forehead. Daniel says the notebook recorded his rent payments. Daniel? The tenant. I know who Daniel is. Then why did you say his name like that? I'm surprised you're already taking his word over your father's. I asked about a notebook, and I answered. I don't remember it. Did you throw away everything? No. Manuals went into a box. Address books and photographs went on the dining room table. If something looked personal, I kept it. And a notebook labeled Cottage didn't look personal. I said, I don't remember it. In the silence, Leah heard Paul asking Elaine something from another room. Her mother covered the phone, though not completely. She's with him now. Paul's reply was indistinct. Elaine returned. Your father wants to talk to you. I don't want to talk to Dad. Leah, I'll call later. She ended the call before her mother could pass the phone over. Daniel poured his coffee down the sink. That went well. You don't get to review my family conversations. You conducted it 6 feet from me. You could have gone upstairs. You could have gone outside. It's raining, I know. I'm the one with the basement. Leah stared at him. He rubbed a hand over the back of his neck. Sorry, he said. It was the first apology either of them had offered. He went upstairs and returned with a dented metal file box. He placed it on the table, moved the untouched coffee aside, and opened the lid. Inside were envelopes organized by month, bundles of receipts held with binder clips, and folded sheets of graph paper. Daniel took out a packet marked September. Materials, he said. Window compound, glass, 2-sash cords, paint. June reimbursed me for those. How? Check. That should appear in her bank records. It will. And the labor? Credited against rent? $840. I paid her $60. In cash? Check. He removed his phone and opened a photograph. It showed the cottage's front windows with flaking putty and a cloudy pane. The next image showed one sash removed, the opening covered with plywood. Then came a close photograph of the repaired window, Daniel's hand holding a scrap of paper on which June had written, "Too much white, more cream." Leah enlarged the note. "That's her handwriting, I'm aware. Stop saying that. Then stop telling me things I know." He swiped again. June stood beside the window in a red raincoat, her silver hair flattened on one side. She was pointing at a corner of the sash while Daniel, partly visible, held a paintbrush. The photograph had caught her mid-sentence, mouth open, eyebrows stern. Leah's thumb hovered over the screen. "When was this?" "September 14th. She told me she spent that weekend with a stomach bug. She spent Saturday supervising me. Sunday she probably needed recovery." "That's not funny." "No, but it was a little funny." June looked fierce and pleased. Leah handed back the phone. "Pictures prove you did work. They don't prove what she agreed to pay." "I know. You have to stop saying that too. I'll make a list." He began placing receipts back in the file. "What are you going to do?" Leah asked. "Fix the pipe. I mean about the cottage." "It isn't my cottage. You live here. I rent here. According to a notebook that may be at the bottom of a landfill?" Daniel closed the file box. "You came to evict me. If you're going to do it, give me whatever notice you're required to give, and I'll find somewhere else." The directness unsettled her. She had expected pleading, bargaining, perhaps anger. She had not expected him to make leaving sound like one more repair to schedule. "Where would you go? That isn't your problem. You just said you were sleeping in your truck before, 4 years ago. What happened?" He lifted the file box. "That," he said, "is also not your problem." Leah followed him into the living room. "You can't use privacy only when it benefits you. You told me my grandmother planned to live here. She did. You told me she was lonely. I said the house had empty rooms. That's not the same as telling you how she felt. It's close enough." Daniel set the box on a shelf beside the carpentry books. "I like June. She liked me, she hired me, argued with me, ate my soup, and charged me rent. None of that entitles you to every bad thing that happened before I met her." The room went very still. Leah looked at the patched plaster wall. One repair was smooth and sanded. Another remained rough around the edges, the white compound bright against faded yellow paint. "Who made that patch?" "Me. Why didn't you paint it?" June hadn't chosen a color. She had yellow. She said it looked like a smoker's tooth. That sounded so precisely like June that Leah's anger loosened in spite of her. Daniel pointed at the smoother patch near the door. "She did that one. Grandma patched plaster? She learned." Leah went closer. There were shallow ridges where June had dragged the knife unevenly. "She was terrible at it," Daniel said. "She was 82. She was terrible for any age." Leah touched one of the ridges with her fingertip. "Why teach her?" she asked. No one in the family had thought to ask whether June wanted to learn how to fix the walls. They had hired people, replaced things, urged her to move. They had treated competence as one more possession age was taking from her. Leah withdrew her hand. "I need to go to the main house." Daniel nodded. "I'm not making a decision today." "Fine. And don't remove anything." "What would I remove?" "I don't know. Fixtures, appliances. You think I'm going to steal the sink I just repaired? I'm telling you not to. The stove is mine." Leah looked at the wood stove. "The stove that sits on my hearth? The hearth is yours. That's absurd. It's property law, according to a man who sold it to me. You bought it?" June hated the old stove. "I found this one used, but it's attached. It has a pipe. Pipes attach things. Your coffee maker has a cord. It's not part of the electrical system. It's not my coffee maker." Daniel glanced toward the kitchen. "That explains why you're so hostile to it." She should have left angry. Instead, she found herself fighting a smile as she pulled on her coat. At the door, Daniel said, "The drawer beside June's stove jammed in summer." Leah turned. She kept the notebook there most of the time, but when the wood swelled, she moved it. "Where?" "I don't know." She carried it around the kitchen and complained for 20 minutes. Did you see where she put it? No. Was that before or after the last entry? After August. We settled September at this table, and she wrote it down here. Then she took it home. Leah pictured June crossing the grass between the cottage and the main house with the black notebook tucked under her arm. When did you last see her? Daniel's gaze shifted past Leah to the rain. 11 days ago. Leah had seen her 10 days ago in the hospital. What did she say? That the soup needed salt. Anything else? Yes. Leah waited. She said your roommate was leaving and you were pretending it didn't scare you. The cottage seemed to tilt by a degree. I never told her I was scared. She noticed things. She told you about my apartment? She told me you might need somewhere to land. Heat rose into Leah's face. So, this was the plan? She leaves me the cottage and you get to stay because you've already made yourself useful? Daniel's expression hardened. There was no plan. She discussed me with you. She discussed everyone. Your sister works too much. Your mother alphabetizes spices she doesn't use. Your father thinks replacing a thing is the same as fixing it? What did she say about you? A muscle moved in Daniel's cheek. That I stop talking when the subject matters. Leah waited, almost daring him to prove June wrong. He opened the door. Cold, rain-scented air moved between them. Drive carefully, he said. The main house stood higher on the hill, white clapboards streaked gray beneath the gutters. 2 cars occupied the drive, Elaine's sedan and Paul's dark SUV. Leah parked behind them and carried June's key envelope inside, though she no longer needed it there. Voices came from the dining room. Paul and Elaine sat amid piles arranged with Elaine's anxious precision. Photographs in one group, correspondence in another, old utility statements stacked near Paul's elbow. At the far end of the table sat the box of instruction manuals Elaine had mentioned. Paul looked up. How bad is it? The cottage? The situation. Leah removed her wet coat. Those are not necessarily the same question. They are, if Mercer's still in it. Elaine pushed back her chair. There's soup. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten. I had a sandwich. When? Leah could not remember. Elaine went to the kitchen anyway. Paul leaned back. Did he show you a lease? He showed me receipts and photographs of the repairs. That isn't a lease. There was a notebook. Was. Grandma recorded the arrangement in it. And where is this notebook? We're looking. Paul's lips pressed together. He did not say convenient, but the words sat visibly between them. Leah walked to the instruction manual box and began sorting through it. What are you doing? He asked, looking. You think your mother threw away evidence? I think Mom cleaned a junk drawer. That man has you suspicious of your own family after one conversation. Leah turned over manuals for a blender June no longer owned, a furnace installed in 1998, and an electric knife still in its box. No, she said. You had me suspicious before I got there. Elaine re-entered carrying a bowl of soup and stopped. Paul's face changed as if she had struck him. Leah hadn't meant to say it. That made it worse. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Nicole appeared on the screen. The movers can come Tuesday instead. Is that okay? Also, landlord wants your plan by Friday. Leah read it twice. Friday was 3 days away. Elaine set the soup on the table. What is it? Nothing? Paul gave a humorless laugh. That's what everyone says when it's something. Leah looked from her parents to the damp key envelope in her hand, then toward the dark window. Far below, through the bare trees, one warm square of light glowed from the cottage kitchen. For the first time, it occurred to her that the tenant was not the only person who might need to remain there. Elaine was the first to understand. You can stay with us, she said. Paul looked at her. It was quick, no more than a turn of his head, but Leah saw it. Her mother saw it too. For a little while, Elaine added, until you figure things out. Our basement's full of exercise equipment, Paul said, as though Leah had asked to move into the treadmill. The guest room isn't. You use it for sewing. I can move my machine. Leah put the utility manual back in the box. I didn't ask to stay with you. No, of course not, Elaine said. But if Nicole's leaving, how do you know about Nicole? Elaine looked toward Paul. Paul looked annoyed at being included in the question. Mom mentioned it, he said, before she went into the hospital. To both of you? She worried, Elaine said. Apparently June had distributed Leah's private life across the county before dying. The landlord just needs to know whether I'm renewing, Leah said. It's not an emergency. Can you afford it alone? Paul asked. That's between me and my landlord. So, no. The soup steamed beside Leah's hand. It was chicken with rice, one of Elaine's reliable grief foods. Her mother made it when people were sick, bereaved, divorced, or simply too tired to object. Leah had eaten the same soup after her grandfather died, after Caroline's first engagement ended, and after Paul's gallbladder surgery. She sat and took a spoonful because refusing would turn dinner into another negotiation. Paul opened the file box he had brought from Mr. Bell's office. The cottage tax bill is due December 1st, $2,143. Leah stopped chewing. That's for the whole year? Second half. The soup became difficult to swallow. Insurance will be separate once the transfer records, he continued. Utilities, maintenance, whatever Mercer damages. He's the reason it isn't already damaged. According to Mercer, according to the roof, windows, chimney, kitchen floor, and back steps. Paul lifted both hands. Fine. He did work. That doesn't create an indefinite right to live there for free. He says his rent is credited through the end of December, and then he pays rent. With what? A new porch? I don't know yet. That's my point. Elaine sat beside Leah and folded her hands on the table. Your father has been looking at the numbers because he doesn't want you blindsided. He started looking before Grandma died. We were helping her. By trying to get rid of Daniel, Paul's chair scraped the floor. I went down there once, and Grandma told you to leave. His eyes narrowed. Is that what he said? Did she? She was ill. The man had put himself in a position where she depended on him. The cottage depended on him. There's a difference. Not when an 82-year-old woman is involved. Elaine said his name softly, but Paul kept his attention on Leah. You met him today. Don't turn him into some misunderstood hero because he showed you a few repaired boards. I didn't. That's what you do. The sentence came with a history so old and well-maintained that Leah could not identify its first use. What do? You decide people are better than they are. Then you take responsibility for proving it. Elaine touched the edge of the soup bowl. Nobody is criticizing you. That sounded remarkably like criticism. He means you have a generous heart. No, he doesn't. Paul looked tired rather than angry. That made Leah want to shake him. I mean, you've got enough to handle without adopting another project. Daniel is 36. You know his age already? He told me. Daniel had not told her. She had gotten it from Mr. Bell's tenancy summary, but correcting Paul would make the conversation worse. The front door opened. Why is everyone's car parked like we're expecting a flood? Caroline called. She entered the dining room carrying 2 grocery bags and stopped at the sight of them. Oh, good, she said. The family expression. What expression? Elaine asked. The one where Dad looks like he's about to explain compound interest, and Leah looks like she's about to join a traveling circus. I would be excellent in a circus, Leah said. You hate glitter? Administrative circus. Caroline placed the bags on the table. I brought containers for the food. Elaine stared at the soup in front of Leah. She has to move. Who? Leah. Paul rubbed his forehead. Caroline looked at Leah. Nicole? Tuesday. That soon? She asked weeks ago. I thought I'd have a job by now. The admission hurt more once it was spoken. Caroline pulled out the chair across from her. You can stay with me. Paul looked relieved. Elaine looked wounded. Caroline's house was 40 minutes in the wrong direction from Leah's hospital and nearly 2 hours from the cottage. The guest room doubled as Caroline's home office, and every visit included a warning not to set drinks near the printer. I appreciate it, Leah said. But I haven't decided what I'm doing. Caroline followed her gaze toward the window. No, she said. I didn't say anything. You look downhill. There are trees. You can't even see the cottage from here. There's one light through the trees. I know how looking works. Paul exhaled. You cannot move in with that man. It's my house. Cottage, Caroline said automatically. Leah turned on her. You don't get to make it smaller when Dad wants me to give it away, and larger when you want to scare me. Caroline's face closed. Elaine began straightening the stack of old photographs, though the edges were already aligned. No one wants to scare you. I need a place to live. I own one. With a tenant, Paul said, with a spare room. With a strange man upstairs, Elaine said. He's not strange. 3 people looked at her. He's unpleasant, Leah corrected. That's different. Caroline leaned forward. You don't know him. This is not about whether he has soulful eyes and knows how to fix a chimney. I have no opinion about his eyes. Are they soulful? I think they're brown. Oh no, Caroline said. She noticed the color. Leah laughed once, unwillingly. Even Elaine smiled, but Paul did not. This isn't funny, he said. No, Leah said. It's embarrassing, which is why I'd appreciate not discussing my housing like I left a backpack at summer camp. The smiles disappeared. Paul pulled a single sheet from his file and placed it in front of her. It was the photocopy of the tax bill. The estate can pay this, he said. If the cottage comes back into the estate, and if it doesn't, it's yours. The clean answer was brutal in its simplicity. Elaine looked at him. Paul, there may be a grace period. There may be. It's still due. Caroline picked up the bill and scanned it. Could we each cover part and let Leah repay us? Paul's silence answered before he did. That muddies everything, he said. She needs to decide whether she can carry the property. Leah heard something beneath his practicality then. Not greed exactly. Fear. Paul had spent the final year watching bills arrive at his mother's house, watching repairs multiply, watching June refuse the safer choices he offered. The cottage was not charming to him. It was one more place where the women in his life might ignore his warnings and leave him to clean up afterward. Understanding him did not make his offer kinder. Leah took the tax bill. I'm not transferring anything tonight. No one asked you to. You brought the form. Paul looked at the file box. Elaine's hand stopped moving. Caroline said, What form? Paul pulled out another page, no longer pretending its presence was incidental. A preliminary authorization for Mr. Bell to prepare the transfer. Nothing binding. You brought it to dinner? Caroline asked. I brought the estate file. You brought it because she's here. I thought we could discuss options. Leah read the first paragraph. Her vision blurred before any of the language made sense. She placed it back on the table. I'm going to look for the notebook. She carried her soup into the kitchen. The bottom drawer opened smoothly despite Daniel's claim that it jammed in. Summer. It was nearly empty now. A roll of aluminum foil, 2 oven mitts, and a clear plastic box of replacement batteries sat inside. Leah removed the drawer and set it on the floor. Nothing lay behind it except dust and a penny. Elaine appeared in the doorway. I didn't throw it away on purpose. I know. I would never destroy something important. I know. I kept all the personal things. Leah looked at the stripped drawer. You decided what was personal. Elaine flinched. Leah hated herself at once, but her mother spoke before she could apologize. Someone had to decide. There it was, the family's quiet operating principle. Decisions went to the person already standing nearest the task. Elaine cleaned, so Elaine determined what mattered. Paul paid bills, so Paul determined what was affordable. Caroline organized, so Caroline determined what happened next. Leah listened, visited, washed clean spoons. Nobody had considered that decision-making might be one of the things June wanted to leave her. Elaine reached into the clear battery box and removed a silver marker. This was in there, she said. I kept it because it worked. Leah took it. The barrel had a strip of masking tape around it with June's name written in blue ink. It doesn't prove anything, Elaine said. I know. Her mother leaned against the counter. Your father isn't trying to take something from you. He called it the only thing nobody else could use. He was ashamed as soon as he said it. He didn't take it back. He doesn't know how. That's not the same as being unable. Elaine looked toward the dining room, where Caroline and Paul were talking in low voices. Your grandmother could be difficult, she said. Everyone is turning her into this wise little saint now, but she could make you feel punished for trying to help. She accepted things from strangers that she refused from family. Daniel wasn't a stranger to her. No, I suppose he wasn't. Elaine sounded more hurt than suspicious. Leah slipped the marker into her coat pocket. She returned to her apartment that night beneath a clearing sky. Boxes lined the living room, Nicole's name written on most of them. Their couch had already been sold, leaving 4 pale dents in the carpet. Nicole emerged from her bedroom, holding 2 wine glasses. I forgot these were yours. They were my grandmother's. Oh, Nicole handled them more carefully. Sorry, it's fine. How is the cottage? Leah set the glasses on the counter. It has walls. Most homes do. These are stone. Fancy. They leak. Less fancy. Leah opened the refrigerator. 1 bottle of mustard, half a carton of eggs, and 3 foil-wrapped funeral sandwiches remained. Nicole leaned against the counter. "You can take my room Tuesday night if you need extra time. The lease runs through the end of the month. The landlord wants a renewal plan Friday." "I know. He texted me too." Leah selected a sandwich. "Are you going to renew?" Nicole asked. "I can't afford it alone." The answer felt cleaner here, away from family. Nicole nodded. No false reassurance, no immediate solution. "That sucks." "It does." "What about the stone place? There's a tenant. Is he dangerous?" "He labels receipts by month. That is terrifying." Leah smiled. At 9 the next morning, she called Daniel. He answered with a power tool whining in the background. "Mercer? It's Leah." The tool stopped. "I need to ask you something," she said. "There are 2 exterior doors, right? Front and back. The downstairs room is by the back door." "Yes." "And the bathroom locks?" A pause. "Yes." "Does the bedroom door lock?" "Not currently." "Can you make it?" Another pause, longer this time. "Why?" Leah looked at the boxes surrounding her. "Because I'm moving into the cottage Tuesday." Daniel did not respond. Leah moved the phone away from her ear to check whether the call had dropped. "Are you still there?" "Yes." "You went quiet." "I was hoping you'd say something else." "It's my cottage." "I know. And there's a room." "I know that too." "Then why are you acting like I said I'm moving into your truck?" "Because you met me yesterday. You told me to give you proper notice if I wanted you out. I'm not putting you out. You think moving in is the less complicated option?" "No. I think it's the option that doesn't require money I don't have." The power tool started briefly, then stopped. Daniel had apparently leaned against it by accident. "What did Belle tell you about the tenancy?" he asked. "That you occupy the cottage. That's vague. Lawyers enjoy that. My agreement is for the upstairs bedroom, storage in the shed, and shared use of the rest. June reserved the downstairs room. So, I can use it. You can. I'm asking whether you should." Leah looked around the apartment. Nicole had removed the frame prints from the hall, exposing pale rectangles on the wall. Without the couch or the clutter, the place already seemed to be forgetting them. "I'll be there Tuesday," she said. "I need a lock on the downstairs bedroom. I'll pay for the hardware. I have hardware. I'll pay for it. Fine. And I want a written agreement about the lock, about everything. Your rent, the room, utilities, repairs. Whatever arrangement you had with Grandma ended when she died. That's not entirely how tenancy works. Then we'll write down the parts that do. You were ready to evict me yesterday. I was ready to talk about rent. You used the word evict, not to you. You didn't have to." Leah pressed the phone harder against her ear. "Do you want me to ask permission?" "No." "Good, because I'm not going to. I want you to understand that a lock doesn't make living with a stranger safe. Are you warning me about yourself? I'm warning you about the decision. My father already applied for that position." Daniel let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "Tuesday then. Tuesday. Bring boots." "Why?" "Mud." The line went dead. Caroline arrived at the apartment on moving day wearing clean white sneakers, which proved that Leah had neglected to share Daniel's advice. "You said cottage," she complained while staring at the wet lane. "You didn't say frontier settlement. I said stone cottage. That describes the walls, not the absence of pavement." Caroline's SUV was packed with boxes Leah had labeled, using a restaurant shorthand nobody else understood. KT dry meant kitchen dry goods. Bed soft meant bedding, not a particularly unchallenging mattress. MISCNEC was a box Leah had sealed in exhaustion at 2 in the morning. Daniel stood beside his truck, splitting narrow pieces of kindling. He wore a faded flannel shirt, work pants, and the neutral expression of someone determined not to react to Caroline's shoes. Leah got out. "Daniel, this is my sister, Caroline." He set down the hatchet. "We spoke on the phone." Caroline looked at Leah. "You gave him my number?" "June did," Daniel said. "When?" "Last year. She listed you as the emergency contact for the cottage." Why wasn't Leah the contact? Leah braced herself, but Daniel only said, "You'd have to ask June." Caroline's mouth tightened. Daniel wiped his hand on his pants before offering it. Caroline glanced at the hand, then shook it firmly. "Where do you want the boxes?" he asked. "Downstairs room," Leah said. "KT dry?" He read the nearest label. "Kitchen. Your labeling system needs vowels. It's efficient. It looks like a license plate. Caroline opened the rear hatch. She once labeled leftover turkey Turk sad. It was dry. It was November 29th. Everyone was sad. Daniel lifted 2 boxes at once and carried them toward the house. Caroline watched him go. "Brown eyes," she murmured. "Lift something. I am assessing the danger. You're wearing $70 sneakers in mud. 90. That was not a defense." Inside, the downstairs bedroom had changed. The bed was gone, replaced by a narrow wooden frame leaned against the wall. June's quilt had been folded on the dresser. A new brass lock gleamed on the door. Leah stared at the empty floor. "Where's the bed?" "Mine," Daniel said from behind her. "I moved it upstairs when June stopped staying here. There was a bed here 2 days ago. I brought it down for the funeral week." "Why?" "In case family needed it." Caroline leaned toward Leah. "I'd like the record to show I have questions." Leah ignored her. "You moved a bed downstairs in case one of us stayed?" June expected people to come. She was in the hospital. She went into the hospital. She expected to come home. Daniel set the boxes down more carefully than necessary. No one spoke. Finally, Caroline said, "Where is Leah supposed to sleep?" "There's a frame in the shed and a mattress in the loft. I took them out this morning to air." "You have a mattress loft?" Caroline asked. "Shed loft. That's less alarming." They carried boxes until the room looked even smaller. The mattress was clean but older than Leah would have chosen. Daniel brought it inside, then assembled the frame while refusing Caroline's assistance because she kept handing him the wrong bolts. "I'm not a carpenter," she said. "They're sorted by length. They're all silver. So are forks. You manage." Caroline stared at him, then laughed. "I'm beginning to understand why Dad hates you." Daniel tightened the last bolt. "Your father and I had one conversation. That's enough for him to form a durable position." Leah waited for Daniel to contribute something insulting. Instead, he checked the frame for wobble and said, "He was worried about June." The unexpected defense quieted Caroline. By late afternoon, her SUV was empty. Daniel had retreated to the shed, and rain tapped at the kitchen windows. Caroline stood near the back door holding her keys. "You can still come to my place." "I know, I can move the printer. That's practically a declaration of love. I mean it." Leah leaned against the counter. "I need to see if this can work." Caroline looked toward the ceiling. Daniel's footsteps crossed the room above them, slow and heavy. "You called me because you wanted help moving," she said. "Or because you wanted me to see him?" "Both." And what? Do I approve? Do you?" Caroline considered. "I approve of his mattress frame assembly. I'm withholding judgment on the rest. That's fair. And I think Grandma liked him." Leah looked at her. Caroline slid her keys between her fingers. He defended Dad. "People trying to split a family usually don't do that. He may just enjoy being contrary. He definitely enjoys that." They hugged beside the back door. Caroline held on a beat longer than usual. "Call me tonight," she said, "even if everything's fine." After her SUV disappeared up the lane, silence settled around the cottage. Not true silence. Wood shifted in the stove. Rain clicked against the chimney cap. Somewhere above, Daniel dropped something and muttered. Leah began unpacking the kitchen boxes. Half the cabinets contained his things: canned beans, coffee, pasta, a jar of peppermint stuck together in one red mass. June's blue mixing bowls occupied the cabinet above the refrigerator. Leah touched the smallest bowl, recognizing a hairline crack along its rim. Daniel came in carrying an armful of wood. "Those were hers," Leah said. "She gave them to the cottage. Bowls don't belong to buildings. She wanted them here. You could say that about anything." "I could. I won't." He stacked the wood beside the stove. Leah opened the refrigerator. Milk, eggs, mustard, 2 containers of leftovers, and 6 bottles of hot sauce filled the shelves. "We need rules." Daniel closed the stove door. "You've been here 4 hours, and we already need rules." She found a marker and wrote Leah on a roll of blue painter's tape. She tore off a strip and placed it on the empty middle shelf. Daniel watched. "You labeled air. I labeled my shelf. You can use the refrigerator. That's what I'm doing." He took a beer from the door. "Are you going to label the stove? Does it belong to you?" "Yes." "Then maybe." He twisted off the cap. "Utilities were included in my rent. They aren't anymore. I've paid through December under the agreement. The agreement we can't find. The agreement existed whether your mother threw it away or not." Leah turned. "Do not blame my mother. I stated a possibility." You stated it like a verdict. Daniel set the bottle on the counter. What do you want? Half the electricity? Half the propane? I'll cover property insurance and taxes because I own the place. Repairs get approved before you start, and we agree on the value in writing. June and I agreed after I inspected the problem. I'm not June, I noticed. The words were not cruel, but they found the bruise anyway. Leah folded her arms. After December, rent is $900 in money unless we both agree to another arrangement. Fine. His quick acceptance threw her off. Fine? Yes. Can you afford that? That's my business. It's my rent. I can afford it. Then why were you paying in repairs? Daniel looked toward the window. Outside, dusk had erased the trees, leaving his reflection in the glass. Because June needed work done. That's only half an answer. It's the half relevant to you. Leah tore off another strip of tape and wrote Daniel across it. She placed it on the shelf above hers. He looked at the label. That shelf is already mine. Now it's official. You're exhausting. You left a wrench in the bathroom. I was fixing the toilet. Is it fixed? Yes. Then the wrench has finished its visit. He picked up his beer, retrieved the wrench from the bathroom, and went upstairs. Leah heated funeral ham in a skillet and ate standing at the counter. She called Caroline as promised. She sent Nicole a photograph of the stone wall. She drafted an email to the landlord confirming she would not renew the apartment. Before pressing send, she listened to Daniel moving overhead and wondered if she was choosing the cottage or simply allowing every other option to close. Then rain began hitting the roof harder. A drop landed on the kitchen floor. Leah looked up. Another drop fell near her foot. Daniel? His footsteps stopped. Water appeared along the edge of the ceiling, thin and shining. Daniel came down carrying a flashlight. He took one look and frowned. I thought you said the roof was sound. It is. It's raining inside. That's not the roof. What is it? He pulled on his jacket and opened the back door. Wind pushed cold rain into the kitchen, the chimney flashing. You repaired the chimney. I repaired the chimney, he said. Nobody said this place had run out of things to break. He stepped into the rain before Leah could answer. Where are you going? To see where it's getting in. In the dark? The water didn't wait for sunrise. He disappeared around the side of the cottage. Leah grabbed the blue enamel pot from beneath the sink and placed it under the drip. The first drop struck with a hollow ping. The second landed 6 inches away. She moved the pot. The third landed where the pot had been. Of course, she muttered. She pulled 2 mixing bowls from the cabinet and arranged them beneath the spreading line. Rain drummed on the roof hard enough to make the room feel smaller. A gust shook the back door. Daniel came in with water pouring from his hair and a flashlight clenched between his teeth. Attic, he said around it. There's an attic? Crawl space. That's not the same thing. It is if you're the one crawling. He dragged a chair beneath a square panel in the kitchen ceiling. Before he climbed up, he looked at Leah. Electrical panels in the basement. Shut off the kitchen circuit. The refrigerator is on that circuit. So is the ceiling light. The water's not near the light. It's traveling across plaster. You want to negotiate with it? Leah went to the basement. The flashlight beam shook over the steps as wind pressed at the stone walls. She found the breaker Daniel had labeled kitchen, fridge, and flipped it. The refrigerator hum stopped. From above came a heavy thump. You okay? I found the joist. With what? My head? Did it apologize? No. She returned to find his boots disappearing through the ceiling. Bits of insulation drifted onto the chair. Daniel's voice came muffled through the opening. Water's tracking down the outside of the flue. Flashing lifted on the west side. Can you fix it? Tonight? No. Another drop struck the floor. Can you stop it? For tonight, maybe. There's roofing cement in the shed. You're not going onto the roof in this. I don't need the roof. I can seal around the flue from here until it dries. Leah looked at the narrow opening. You said maybe. I say maybe when I mean maybe. That's reassuring. Hand me the red caulking gun from the shed. She put on her coat and boots. The mud Daniel had warned her about had become a cold brown current along the path. The shed stood 20 yards from the house, its door secured by a wooden latch. Inside, the beam of her flashlight found shelves of paint cans, stacked lumber, a lawnmower, and enough tools to dismantle the entire cottage if Daniel changed his mind about stealing fixtures. Red caulking gun, she said aloud. 3 caulking guns hung on the wall. One had red handles. She grabbed it and ran back through the rain. Daniel reached down through the ceiling panel. She placed the tool in his hand. "Tube," he said. "What tube?" "Black tube. Roof cement." "You said gun. A gun requires ammunition." "You could have included that. I assumed context. You live with another person now. Stop assuming context." She ran back to the shed. By the time the temporary seal held, water had spread across the basement floor. It entered through the dark corner Daniel had shown her, creeping over the stone in a shallow sheet. He stood on the bottom step, light aimed at it. "That's faster than usual. Is that another maybe?" "No. That's definitely faster." "What do we do?" "Outside drain may be blocked." He climbed the stairs again. Leah followed. "Can we wait until the rain slows?" "We can, but the basement won't." They went out carrying shovels. Daniel led her around the north side, where water rushed along the foundation and disappeared beneath a mat of leaves. "There's a trench here," he shouted over the rain. "It carries runoff toward the woods." "I don't see a trench. That's the problem." He drove his shovel into the leaves. Leah copied him. Wet oak leaves clung together in heavy, rotting layers. Under them lay sticks, gravel, and black mud. Daniel worked downhill, opening a channel. Leah cleared behind him, throwing debris away from the wall. Water filled every space they created. Her gloves soaked through. Her lower back began to ache. "This counts as a repair," Daniel said. "What?" "For rent." "You didn't get approval." "Emergency exception." "There is no emergency exception." "There should be. This is your half of the utilities. That doesn't make sense. Neither does roof ammunition." He laughed, a quick sound carried away by the rain. They reached a clogged iron grate near the back corner. Daniel crouched and pulled leaves from it with both hands. The water dropped an inch, hesitated, then spun into the opening with a sucking noise. "There," he said. The sudden current knocked loose a clump of mud beneath Leah's boot. Her foot slid. Daniel caught her by the elbow, but his own balance went with hers. They struck the ground together, Leah on one knee and Daniel sitting heavily in the trench. For a second they remained there, soaked and stunned. Then Leah looked at the stream of muddy water running directly between Daniel's legs. "You found the drain." He wiped rain from his face. "I hate this house." "No, you don't." "No," he admitted, "I don't." By the time they returned inside, the ceiling had stopped dripping. Daniel switched the kitchen breaker back on and checked the basement. The water was no longer rising. Leah peeled off her wet coat. Mud covered one leg from knee to ankle. "My first night," she said. "The cottage likes to establish expectations early. Did it do this to you?" "My first night, a squirrel came down the chimney." "What did you do?" "Opened the front door, and it left." "That's all?" It wasn't a complicated squirrel. Daniel fed 2 pieces of wood into the stove. Heat began to push against Leah's wet clothes. She stood close enough to steam. "Your knee bleeding?" She looked down. A scrape crossed her kneecap, bright beneath the mud. "It's fine. There's a first aid kit in the bathroom." "Next to your wrench?" "The wrench is upstairs." He brought the kit anyway, set it on the table, and went into the kitchen. Cupboard doors opened and closed. Leah cleaned the scrape while he heated soup in a saucepan. "What is that?" she asked. "Lentil." "Did you make it?" "Yes. It smells good." "Your surprise is insulting. My father can burn canned chili." "I'm not your father." The words landed without the humor he intended. Daniel stirred the soup and kept his back to her. "I know," Leah said. He divided it into 2 bowls and placed one at her end of the table. They ate in damp socks while the storm moved east. The soup needed salt. Leah almost said so, then remembered June's last conversation with Daniel and reached silently for the shaker. He noticed. She wasn't wrong. "It's good. It's undersalted. Why didn't you add more?" "Because she complained when I did that too." Leah smiled into the bowl. Afterward, Daniel drew a rough diagram of the cottage on a grocery bag. He marked the chimney, the north wall, the drainage trench, and the buried pipe leading toward the woods. "The trench needs to be cleared twice a year," he said. "Did Grandma know?" "She helped the first time. With a shovel, with opinions. That, I believe. She also brought sandwiches." Leah studied the drawing. "Why didn't you clear it before tonight?" "I did in March. It clogged again." "Yes." "So twice a year isn't enough." Daniel looked at her, then crossed out the 2 and wrote 3. "Look at us," he said, "building a system." It was meant as a joke, but Leah felt something settle into place. Not safety, not yet. A problem had happened, and instead of becoming evidence that she was incapable, it had become a list. Dry the ceiling, inspect the flashing, clean the trench more often, keep roofing cement where both residents could find it. She took the grocery bag to her room. "What are you doing?" Daniel asked. "Keeping the house information." "That's my diagram. It's my house. You're going to use that sentence until the stones fall down. Then I'll own a pile." Her phone rang while she was changing into dry clothes. Paul. She let it ring twice before answering. "Hi, Caroline said you moved. She's efficient. You should have told us. You offered me a conditional couch. We offered you a room." "Mom did." Paul breathed out slowly. "Are you safe?" Leah looked at the water stain spreading across the kitchen ceiling, visible through her open door. "Yes." "Is Mercer there?" "He lives here, Dad. I'm asking whether you're alone with him. That's generally what happens when two people share a house." Cottage. She almost smiled. Caroline's correction had apparently been inherited from both sides. "Aren't you supposed to be asking whether I have heat?" Leah said. "Do you?" "Yes." "Hot water?" "Yes." "Working locks?" "Yes." "Then I'm asking the next question." Leah sat on the bed. June's quilt lay folded beside her. "He caught me when I slipped in the drainage trench." A beat of silence. "What drainage trench?" She regretted the sentence immediately. "There was water in the basement," she said. "We cleared the drain. It's handled." Paul's voice tightened. "On your first night, it rained hard. This is exactly what I meant. Dad, the roof leaks, the basement floods, and you're living with the man who supposedly fixed everything. The roof is sound, the flashing lifted. That is the roof. Apparently it's different. According to Mercer, according to water." Paul went quiet. Leah could imagine him standing in his kitchen, one hand on his hip, already calculating costs. She softened. "I'm okay," she said. "Really? I'm not trying to be right. You're very gifted at it for someone not trying." "Leah, I'll call tomorrow." She ended the conversation before he could ask about the tax bill. In the morning, the cottage smelled of wet wool and coffee. Daniel had already gone outside. Through the kitchen window, Leah saw him on a ladder, examining the chimney flashing. He had left a note beside the coffee maker. Seal held. "Don't use stove until I check flue." Below that, in smaller letters, he had added, "Coffee is communal unless labeled otherwise." Leah tore off a piece of blue tape, wrote Daniel's emotional support, "coffee," and stuck it to the machine. Her phone buzzed with a voicemail from an insurance agent she had contacted the day before. The woman's tone was apologetic, but firm. Before they could bind a new policy, the cottage would require an inspection. Given the age of the structure, they would need confirmation that the electrical system had been updated, along with photographs of the panel and visible wiring. Leah looked at the ceiling light. The switch plate was brown bakelite, probably older than her father. Daniel came in carrying a strip of bent metal. "Found the problem," he said. "Wind pulled 2 nails loose. Can you repair it?" "Yes." "Good." "Because an insurance inspector is coming, and apparently we have to prove the electrical system won't kill us." Daniel set the flashing on the counter. The kitchen wiring was updated. "What about the rest?" He glanced toward the living room. Leah followed his gaze to a cloth-covered cord running along the baseboard. "How much?" she asked. "I'm not an electrician." "That isn't what I asked." "No," Daniel said. "It's the reason I can't answer." Leah pointed at the cloth cord. "But you know that's old." "Yes. And you didn't mention it. You didn't ask for an electrical survey. I asked what was wrong with the house. That conversation would have lasted until spring." She stared at him. Daniel held up a hand. "The old wiring serves 2 outlets in that light. The panel, kitchen, bathroom, water heater, and upstairs were updated before I moved in. June got an estimate for the rest." "How much?" $3,800. Leah leaned against the counter. "When?" 18 months ago. "So it'll be more now?" "Probably." She closed her eyes. The tax bill waited in a folder beside her bed. $2,143. Insurance had not even been priced yet. Now an electrician wanted an imaginary $4,000 more. "The estate can pay this," Paul had said, "if the cottage comes back into the estate." "Can you call whoever gave the estimate?" she asked. He retired. "Of course he did. I know another electrician. Is he licensed?" Daniel looked offended. "Yes." "You're friends?" "We've worked the same jobs. Does he like you?" Not especially. Good. Maybe he'll give us an honest price. Daniel called from the kitchen while Leah dressed for work. The electrician could come at 4 the following afternoon. Leah had a shift until 3:30 and calculated the drive twice before deciding she could make it if no one sent a tray back because they had received creamed spinach instead of green beans. 3 patients received creamed spinach instead of green beans. Leah discovered the error before service and reorganized 2 cartloads in 9 minutes. Her manager, Beverly, stood in the cold prep area, holding the incorrect production sheet. Purchasing sent the old menu, Beverly said. Purchasing always sends the old menu. You interested in saying that to purchasing? Yes. Beverly looked over her glasses. You apply for that buyer position at Fairview Rehab? Last week. My cousin works there. Leah waited. Beverly enjoyed useful information most when people did not chase her for it. She says they haven't interviewed yet, Beverly continued. Call the food services director. Don't wait for human resources to remember you exist. I emailed. I said call. Leah looked at the clock. Beverly followed her gaze. Go, I'll finish the count. You hate finishing my count. I do. Bring me something old and haunted from your cottage. It came with a tenant. I don't want him. The electrician was already there when Leah pulled into the lane. His white van occupied the flat ground, forcing her to park with 2 wheels in mud. Daniel and a compact man with a shaved head stood near the outdoor meter. The electrician introduced himself as Mike Dorsey and did not offer an opinion about Daniel's personality. He carried a canvas tool bag covered in electrical tape and moved through the cottage without wasting words. Leah followed with a notebook. Do I need a new panel? No. New service? No. Whole house rewiring. Mike looked up at the kitchen ceiling. You always ask 3 questions before a person answers one? Yes. Daniel, behind her, said, yes. Mike opened an outlet near the living room window. This circuit needs replacing. Cloth cable runs through the wall to that fixture, then to the front outlet. I'd add a dedicated circuit for the stove blower while I'm here. The stove has a blower? Leah asked. Daniel pointed to a switch she had assumed did nothing. She pressed it. Warm air pushed from the base of the stove. You let me stand there steaming in my wet clothes, she said. You looked happy. I looked damp. Mike glanced between them. You want me to come back? No, they said together. He inspected the basement and found 2 uncovered junction boxes, neither costly. The bathroom exhaust fan needed proper grounding. The old cord was the principal issue. $2,600, he said at the kitchen table. Maybe $29 if the cable fights. Cable fights? Leah asked. Old houses don't release things voluntarily. Can you write an estimate the insurer will accept? I can write what I'm replacing and why. When can you do it? 3 weeks. The inspection is before then. Mike shrugged into his jacket. Have your agent bind the policy subject to correction. Some will give 30 days if the panel and service are sound. And if they won't, find one who will. He left the estimate on the table and drove away. Leah sat with her calculator. Daniel made coffee, saw her expression, and made tea instead. I can cover half, he said. She looked up. Why? I use the electricity. It becomes part of the house. So did the windows. You paid for those through rent. Yes. You already claim your rent is covered through December. It is. Then this would be, what? Future rent? Could be. With money? Money is traditional. She studied him. You have $1,300 available? I can. That wasn't the question. It's the answer you get. Leah pushed the estimate toward him. What happens in January? I pay $900, plus half the utilities. Yes. And now half the electrical work. Yes. How? Daniel took a folded paper from his jacket pocket and set it beside the estimate. It was a bid for restoring pantry cabinets in a house 30 miles north. Labor, $2,800. Materials, $900, paid by client. You got a job. I looked at it this morning. Leah read the scope. Remove 6 doors, strip paint, repair 2 panels, rehang, refinish interior shelves. Replace hardware. $2,800 for what sounded like weeks of work. How many hours? 60, maybe 70. Maybe? You don't know until the paint comes off. Then price for 70. I did, at $40 an hour. That's reasonable. It's terrible. For restoration work? For a person trying to pay $900 in rent, half an electrical job, and whatever your emotional coffee costs. My coffee is not part of this. It occupies a lot of shelf space. Daniel reached for the bid. Leah held it down with one hand. Where's your overhead? In the labor. Where? It's built in. How much? He did not answer. Where's fuel? She asked. Tool wear? Disposal? The time you spent driving there and writing this? I don't charge people for thinking. Everyone else does. The client already thinks I'm high. The client is hoping you're desperate. Daniel pulled the bid free. You run a hospital kitchen. I manage inventory in one, which means I know that if something costs $10 and you sell it for $9, being busy doesn't save you. I'm not selling food. No, food has the decency to spoil where people can see it. He folded the paper along the same crease. I didn't ask for business advice. You offered to pay $1,300 you don't currently have. I'll have it, not from this job. His face closed. He put the bid in his pocket. Leah knew she had crossed from practical into personal, but she also knew the numbers did not care about the distinction. Show me your last 3 bids, she said. No. Then don't offer money based on imaginary profit. I did this for 15 years, and then... The question came out before she could stop it. Daniel stood very still. The coffee maker clicked behind them, and then, he said, my partner collected deposits on jobs we couldn't complete, used new money to cover old costs, and disappeared when the numbers stopped working. Leah lowered her hand from the estimate. Did you know that he was moving money? Not at first, but later. Later I knew enough to leave and not enough to leave cleanly. He walked toward the back door. Daniel, he took his coat from the hook. I'm sorry. No, you're curious. I can be both. He put on the coat. I have work. At the pantry house, at the shed. After he left, Leah called the Fairview Food Services director. Her voice shook for the first 30 seconds. Then the director asked what she would do about inconsistent vendor pricing, and Leah forgot to be nervous. She described building a comparison sheet that accounted for delivery fees, minimum orders, spoilage, and substitutions. She explained that a cheaper case was not cheaper if half the product went unused. When she finished, the woman was quiet. Can you come in Monday? She asked. Leah wrote the time on the back of Mike's estimate. Daniel remained in the shed until dark. When he returned, Leah had converted his pantry bid into a 1-page cost sheet. She had not changed his labor rate. She had simply added lines for travel, consumables, equipment, and a 10% contingency if hidden damage appeared after stripping. The total was $3,600. He stood reading it. You made my bid more expensive. I made the work visible. The client will say no. Then he can find someone else to lose money. Daniel set the sheet down. June used to say that. Really? No. June would have called him cheap. Leah smiled. He read the figures again. Contingency gets refunded if I don't use it, or credited on the final invoice. That seems fair. It is fair. He tapped the line for equipment. I already own the tools. Tools don't live forever. Some do. Not if you leave them in bathrooms. A knock sounded at the front door. Caroline stood outside, holding a cardboard file box against her coat. I found something, she said. She set the box on the kitchen table and removed 3 photograph albums, a packet of appliance warranties, and a church directory. At the bottom lay a black notebook with frayed cloth tape along its spine. Cottage was written across the cover in silver marker. Daniel did not touch it. Leah looked at Caroline. Where? In the dining room. Mom put it with the personal things. She said she threw the notebooks away. She thought she did. This one was under the photo albums. Daniel pulled out a chair but remained standing behind it. Leah opened the cover. June's handwriting filled the first page. Dates, materials, hours, rent received. Each month ended with 2 signatures. At the bottom of the final completed page, beneath Daniel's name, June had written, December, paid in full. Stop arguing with me. Leah laughed, then covered her mouth because the sound had broken unexpectedly. Daniel looked down at June's words. Caroline read over her shoulder. Well, she said softly, Dad's going to hate being wrong. Daniel finally sat. No, he said, he's going to hate what he was wrong about. Leah turned another page. The entries were not neat enough to be fabricated after the fact. June had crossed out numbers, rewritten dates, and once added a question mark beside 12 feet of copper pipe. Daniel's handwriting appeared mostly at the bottoms of pages, his signature compressed and impatient. June's occupied more space. March listed the back steps. April showed 3 cash payments and a credit for repairing the porch roof. In June, Daniel had charged $600 for labor on the chimney liner, then written beside it, "Actual hours higher. Agreed cap." June had answered beneath him, "Because you spent 6 hours arguing with the old liner." Caroline leaned closer. "Did the old liner argue back?" "It won," Daniel said. Leah continued. "Some months Daniel paid cash. Some months the labor equaled the rent. Twice, his work exceeded it. And June carried the balance forward. Materials were listed separately, with check numbers for reimbursement. There were no round, suspicious totals. There were $43 for mortar, $14 for sash cord, a credit of $275 for rebuilding the retaining wall after Daniel had estimated $300 and June rejected his cleanup hours. "She deducted for cleanup?" Leah asked. "She said cleaning your own mess wasn't a marketable skill." Caroline smiled. "I miss her." The words shifted the room. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. Leah kept her hand on the page. Beneath the December note was an unfinished list. North wall drainage. Paint living room after color chosen. Downstairs outlets. Move bedroom hooks lower. Leah touched the final line. "Why lower?" Daniel looked at it, but did not answer immediately. "For June," he said. She couldn't reach the existing ones without lifting her shoulder. Caroline's expression changed. She was really going to move down here. She was considering it. "She never said anything to me." Daniel glanced at Leah. They had entered familiar territory. Caroline pulled out a chair and sat across from him. "I called every Sunday." "I know." "She told you that too?" "She usually took your call here. In this kitchen, sometimes outside if she wanted to complain about you." Caroline gave a startled laugh. "That feels more accurate." "She didn't want the main house sold," Daniel said. "She also didn't want to keep living in all of it." The cottage was a possible answer. She hadn't decided. Dad would have helped her close off rooms. She didn't want rooms closed off. She wanted fewer rooms. Leah understood the distinction. Paul might not. Caroline opened her phone and photographed the notebook pages. "What are you doing?" Daniel asked. "Sending these to Dad." "No." Caroline looked up. "No? This is between Leah and me. It involves our father accusing you of taking advantage of Grandma. That is also between your father and me." "No," Leah said. "It stopped being private when he used it to pressure me into giving up the cottage." Daniel's gaze settled on her. "The notebook proves rent. It doesn't prove you can afford this place." "I didn't say it did." "You're about to use it as if one question answers the other." Caroline held her phone over the page. "That's exactly what Dad did when he said there were no bank deposits." Daniel looked toward the stove. June hated family fights. Both sisters stared at him. June loved family fights, Caroline said. She disliked being in them. She started half of them, Leah said. Daniel considered. She did enjoy the opening. Caroline took the photographs. Paul called before she could send them. His name appeared on her screen, as if parental suspicion traveled faster than cellular data. "Mom told him I came down here," Caroline said. "Why does Mom know?" Leah asked. "She tracks my location." Daniel looked alarmed. "Voluntarily," Caroline added. "Mostly." She answered and put the phone on speaker. "Hi, Dad. Are you at the cottage?" "Yes." "With Leah?" "Yes." "And Mercer?" Daniel sat back. "Yes." "Why didn't anyone tell us?" "Because we're all adults with access to roads." Paul ignored that. "Your mother found an insurance notice in Mom's mail. Coverage on the cottage ends when ownership transfers. Leah knows." "How does Leah know?" "Because Leah called an insurance agent," Leah said. A pause. "Am I on speaker?" "Yes." "Why?" Caroline looked at Daniel. "Efficiency. I don't want to discuss estate business in front of Mercer." Daniel stood. "Stay," Leah said. "I live here." "Exactly." Paul's voice sharpened. "What's going on?" "We found Grandma's notebook," Caroline said. The cottage notebook. Silence came through the phone. Caroline photographed another page. It documents the repair arrangement. Rent, materials, labor credits, signed every month. Daniel's paid through December. Paul did not respond. "Dad, I heard you." "So he wasn't living there for free. I never said he did no work. You said there was no rent. There were no rental deposits for 22 months. "There were," Leah said. "Some months." "Grandma wrote the check numbers. What do you want me to say?" The question was quiet and genuinely weary. Leah looked at Daniel. He had gone to the window, giving Paul privacy he had not been offered himself. "I want you to stop calling him a deadbeat," she said. "I said that to you in private, and I brought it into his house. It isn't his house. Part of it is his home." Paul exhaled. "Your mother and I are coming down." "No," Leah said. "We need to see the notebook. I'll bring it tomorrow. I'm already in the car." The call ended. Caroline placed her phone on the table. "He does enjoy arriving." Daniel took his coat from the hook. "Where are you going?" Leah asked. "Shed." "You don't have to leave." "Yes, I do. This concerns you." That has not improved the conversation so far. He opened the door. "Daniel," Caroline said. He turned. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." His expression softened by a fraction. "You didn't throw anything away." After he left, Caroline touched the silver lettering on the notebook cover. "Mom didn't throw it away either. I accused her. She did clear the drawer. She kept this. She kept a box. She didn't know what was in the bottom. That's not the same as deciding it mattered." "No," Caroline said. "But it's not the same as deciding it didn't." Leah closed the notebook. Their parents arrived 20 minutes later. Paul entered first, rain on the shoulders of his jacket. Elaine followed, carrying a canvas bag of food. "I made lasagna," she said. Caroline looked at Leah. "Peace lasagna." "It was already made," Elaine said. "Premeditated peace lasagna." Paul ignored them and held out his hand. "Notebook?" Leah did not give it to him. "Sit down." "Leah, it's not a deposition. Sit." Something flashed across his face, but he removed his jacket and sat at the kitchen table. Elaine placed the lasagna on the counter and looked around. "I haven't been in here for years," she said. Her gaze traveled over the repaired cabinets, the windows, and the fresh mortar around the hearth. "This is June's blue bowl. She gave the bowls to the cottage," Leah said. Elaine touched the rim. "She told me they broke. Nobody had an answer for that." Paul opened the notebook. He read without comment, moving slowly through the pages. Elaine stood behind him. At one entry, she pressed her hand to his shoulder. "Your check," she said. "That's the reimbursement for the chimney materials. I see it." So she wasn't hiding the spending. She hid what it was for. "Because you would have objected. I would have asked whether an unlicensed handyman should install a chimney liner." Daniel's voice came from the doorway. "I didn't." They turned. He had returned without his coat, carrying a box of drill bits. "A certified installer put in the liner," he said. "I removed the old one, repaired the masonry, and built the hearth." Paul stood. "You've been listening? The shed is 20 yards away. I came back for a drill bit. You always appear when you're being discussed. People discuss me where I live." Leah stepped between the table and the door, not physically blocking either man, but making them look at her. "The notebook proves the arrangement," she said. "That question is finished." Paul tapped the page. "It proves Mom credited work as rent. It doesn't prove the work was priced fairly." "Some of it was underpriced," Leah said. Daniel looked at her. Paul laughed once. "According to whom?" "According to the hours and materials." "You're an appraiser now?" "No, I can divide." Paul closed the notebook. "You've known this man for a week." 4 days, Daniel said. "That is not helping," Leah told him. Elaine pulled out a chair. "Can everyone stop making this about who knows Daniel best? This is about June." "No," Daniel said. Elaine stared at him. He placed the drill bits on the counter. "It was about June when she was alive. Now it's about whether Leah can keep the cottage. The notebook can't do that for her." Paul's expression shifted. It was the first time Daniel had said something he agreed with. Exactly. Leah felt the alliance form over her head and hated them both for it. "I'm sitting here," she said. Paul turned back to her. "Then tell us how you're paying $6,000 in taxes and repairs before winter. I have an insurance inspection, an electrical estimate, and a job interview Monday. An interview isn't income. No, it's what happens before income. And if you don't get it, I adjust." "With what money?" Elaine said. "Paul, no. Everyone wants me to apologize for looking at numbers." "Fine, I was wrong about Mercer's rent." "I'm sorry," Daniel nodded once. "Thank you." Paul seemed annoyed that the apology had been accepted so simply. "But I am not wrong about the property," he continued. "Mom could trade repairs because she owned the land free and clear and had investment income. Leah doesn't." The sentence was accurate. That was its cruelty. Leah looked at the notebook, at June's confident silver letters, and realized proof had given her vindication without relief. Daniel had warned her. She stood. "I'd like everyone to leave." Elaine looked stricken. "We just got here. I know, we brought dinner. Leave the lasagna." Caroline rose without argument. She took her coat and kissed Leah's cheek. At the door, Elaine hesitated. "Your grandmother wasn't trying to burden you." Leah looked around the warm, leaking, repaired, underinsured cottage. "I know," she said. After their cars left, Daniel put the lasagna in the oven. "You didn't leave," Leah said. "You told everyone to leave. You're everyone. I'm paid through December." She laughed despite the pressure behind her eyes. Daniel cut 2 pieces when the cheese began to bubble. They ate at opposite ends of the table, with June's notebook between them. Halfway through, he said, "You were right about my bid." Leah looked up. The client accepted $3,600. For the first time that evening, the numbers on the table moved in her direction. "You used the contingency?" I explained it. He argued for 6 minutes, then said yes. "Did you get a deposit?" Daniel stopped chewing. Leah put down her fork. "You didn't." "I got verbal acceptance." "That is air. He's sending a check." "When?" "Tomorrow. Do not buy materials until the check clears." "I know how deposits work. Your recent history suggests deposits are emotionally complicated." His eyes lifted to hers. "That was unfair," she said. "Yes, but still don't buy materials." He took another bite of lasagna. "The deposit is $1,200. I can give you $650 for the electrical work when it clears, and the other $650 after the first progress payment. Half is $13 to $14.50. I can count. I'm making sure. Your faith in me is moving. It started underground." Daniel nodded toward the notebook. "Write it down. Electrical contribution separate from rent. Not a credit." Leah opened to a clean page in the back. "Date? Tonight." "I know today's date. I'm supporting the process." She wrote their agreement, leaving the final amount tied to Mike's invoice. Daniel read it, changed half to 50% for no discernible reason, and signed. Leah signed beneath him. It was the first line in the notebook written after June's death. They both noticed. Daniel closed the cover. On Monday morning, Leah parked outside Fairview Rehabilitation Center 23 minutes early. She spent 12 of them reviewing vendor terminology and 11 trying to remove dog hair from her black pants with tape from the first aid kit in her car. The food services director, Marisol Vega, wore red glasses and did not ask whether Leah was comfortable with urgency. She asked how Leah would handle a cook who rejected a cheaper product because he preferred the old brand. "I'd have him test both without seeing the labels," Leah said. "If he can tell the difference and it matters to the residents, I keep the old one. If he can't, I ask why we're paying for the box. What if he still refuses? I ask him to help me find the savings somewhere else." "So, you let him win?" "I let him be responsible." Marisol made a note. The interview lasted 40 minutes. When Leah returned to her car, she could not tell whether she had been impressive or exhausting. She called Beverly. "Well," Beverly demanded. She wrote things down. "They do that." She asked when I could start. "They also do that." "You're terrible at encouragement. I encourage you to call." Leah drove back to the hospital for her afternoon shift, where the freezer alarm malfunctioned and beeped every 7 minutes. At 5:30, Marisol called. The job paid only $2 more per hour, but it guaranteed 40 hours, weekday mornings, health insurance, and responsibility for food purchasing across the facility. Leah accepted before Marisol finished describing the dental plan. She stood in the hospital loading dock afterward, surrounded by pallets of canned peaches, and cried for exactly long enough to make the receiving clerk uncomfortable. At the cottage, Daniel was not in the kitchen. A note beside the coffee maker read, "Shed." Leah crossed the muddy path. Light shone through the shed windows. Inside, Daniel had spread cabinet doors across padded sawhorses. Layers of paint showed along one edge, white over cream over a dark green. He wore a respirator and did not hear her enter. Leah waited until he shut off the sander, then said, "I got the job." Daniel jerked and nearly dropped the tool. He pulled off the respirator. "You can't appear behind people using power equipment. You appear in doorways whenever anyone discusses you. That's different." "I got the job." His irritation vanished. "Fairview, 40 hours, mornings." "How much?" she told him. He considered the number seriously without the exaggerated celebration people used when they did not understand what it meant. That covers the taxes, he said. Not by December 1st. No, but it covers them eventually. Yes, and I'll get my apartment deposit back. Unless you labeled the walls. She smiled. Are you saying congratulations? I'm building to it. Daniel removed his work gloves and held out a hand. Leah looked at it. A handshake? I don't know your celebration policy. She ignored the hand and hugged him. The decision surprised both of them. His arms remained at his sides for one awkward second, then settled lightly around her shoulders. He smelled of sawdust and cold air. Leah became aware of the warmth of his chest, of how long it had been since another person had held her, without trying to guide her somewhere. She stepped back first. Daniel picked up his gloves. Congratulations, he said. Thank you. Now that you have a prestigious purchasing position, can you tell me whether this paint is lead? It's green, not lead. I regret the handshake alternative. He had completed 2 cabinet doors. The wood beneath the old paint was maple, pale and tightly grained. Daniel had repaired a split panel so neatly the seam nearly disappeared. These are beautiful. They will be. They already are. He glanced at her, then away. Leah took out her phone. What are you doing? Photographing them? No. You need before and after pictures. I have pictures. You have 12 close-ups of damaged corners and 1 photograph of your thumb. That was reference scale. Your thumb is not a recognized unit. She rearranged the doors near the window, where the light was cleaner. Daniel objected to moving them, then moved the sawhorses himself because she was apparently doing it wrong. They spent half an hour taking photographs. Leah captured the layers of old paint, the repaired seam, the cleaned hinges arranged in a row. Daniel explained each step reluctantly at first, then with growing precision. The point isn't to make it look new, he said. New is easy. You keep the tool marks, the little variations. Otherwise, you erase the person who built it. Leah lowered the phone. Grandma would have liked that. She did. Did you talk to her about cabinets? She had opinions on all wood. They chose 6 photographs for Daniel to send the client with his progress invoice. Leah rewrote the message after his first version read, Doors stripped. Repair underway. You sound like a ransom note. The doors are alive, barely. By the time they returned to the cottage, the kitchen felt warmer than the shed, and more familiar than it had a week earlier. Leah put soup on the stove. Daniel cleared receipts from the table. Their movements crossed without collision. The insurance inspection took place the next afternoon. The inspector photographed the panel, tested smoke detectors, measured the distance between the stove and the wall, and frowned at the cloth wiring. He accepted Mike's written estimate and scheduled work as evidence that the defect was being corrected. The policy could be issued with a 30-day requirement. Leah paid the first month's premium from her thinning savings. Mike arrived the following week. He cut 2 rectangular openings in the living room plaster to run new cable. Leah watched the first section fall away and felt physically ill. Can you put that back? She asked. I'm an electrician. Daniel, beside him, said, I can. Mike looked at the uneven patches already on the wall. Which one is yours? Daniel pointed. Which one's hers? He pointed again. Mike nodded. You can. The work took a day and a half. Daniel patched the openings afterward, while Leah updated a spreadsheet at the kitchen table. She had added columns for urgent, seasonal, and someday. The north wall drainage sat under urgent with 3 question marks beside the cost. Painting the living room was someday. Daniel had written never under it. Leah crossed that out. When he finished sanding, 2 fresh white rectangles marked the wall. Color, he said. What? You need to choose one. I like the yellow. You called it yellow. June called it smoker's tooth. It's warm. It's nicotine. Leah opened a drawer in the small dresser Daniel had moved into her room. She had found several paint cards there while unpacking, all shades of blue-gray. She brought them out. These were Grandma's. Daniel's expression shifted. Where did you get those? My room. He took the cards. One had a circle around a color called Harbor Mist. She picked that for the downstairs room, he said. Why didn't she paint it? She was waiting. For what? Daniel studied the card too long. Daniel. He placed it on the table. For you to see it. Leah felt the room sharpen around her. What do you mean? June thought, if you lost the apartment, you might come here. You said she thought I needed somewhere to land. She did. That's not the same as choosing paint for my room. She didn't call it your room. What did she call it? He wiped plaster dust from his hands. The downstairs room. You're stopping when the subject matters. His eyes met hers. June's accusation hung between them. She asked me to keep it available, he said. She said you might need it before you were ready to admit you needed anything. When? September? Before she changed her will? I don't know when she changed her will. But you knew she wanted me here. I knew she hoped you might stay if the cottage came to you. The hurt was not that June had imagined a place for her. It was that Daniel had been standing inside that imagined future when Leah arrived, asking questions he already knew the answers to. You let me think moving in was my idea. It was your decision. You asked whether I should. Because June's hope doesn't make it right for you. You could have told me. You thought I manipulated her. What would it have sounded like if I said she built this arrangement around you? Built what arrangement? Daniel looked toward the stairs. The answer came too slowly. Her living downstairs, he said. Me upstairs. Sharing the costs. She thought it could work for you too. Leah stood. He reached for the paint card, then stopped himself. She talked about my life with you, Leah said. She planned where I might sleep, and you decided which parts I was allowed to know. I was trying not to use her against you. You don't get credit for hiding the kind version of manipulation. Daniel's face went still. Leah took the blue-gray paint cards from the table. Don't come into my room, she said. I mean ever. She went inside and locked the new brass lock he had installed for her. On the other side, the cottage remained quiet. Then Daniel picked up his coat. The back door opened and closed, and his footsteps crossed the wet ground toward the shed. Leah did not know how long she sat on the edge of the bed. June's quilt was folded beside her. The blue-gray paint cards lay in her lap, their names suddenly unbearable. Harbor mist. Quiet sky. Morning fog. Colors designed to sound like a woman had chosen them accidentally while wandering near the ocean, not because she was planning where her granddaughter might sleep after losing an apartment. A light came on in the shed. Leah watched it through the small window. Daniel's shadow crossed once, then disappeared behind stacked lumber. She had wanted June to worry about her. She had also wanted June to believe she could manage her own life. Apparently, she had wanted both so badly that receiving either one felt like proof of the other's absence. Daniel did not return before Leah went to sleep. His bed creaked sometime after midnight. In the morning, he left before she opened her door. The coffee maker was full, but there was no note. Leah carried her mug to Fairview and spent the first 3 hours untangling a standing order for canned green beans that no one remembered placing. The facility had received 24 cases in 6 weeks. 17 sat in storage. Marisol stood in the storeroom doorway. Can we send them back? 11 cases. The rest are outside the return window. Can we eat them? Not if we want residents to remain with us. Marisol smiled. What do you suggest? Leah had already calculated it. She reduced the next order of frozen vegetables, built the remaining green beans into 2 menus, and negotiated a credit for the unopened cases. By lunch, she had saved enough to cover nearly a week of her new wages. It was the sort of problem she loved. Ordinary, measurable, fixable without anyone becoming a villain. The cottage was harder. Daniel communicated through notes for 3 days. Mike invoice on table. Propane delivery Friday. Do not use blue rag. Solvent. Leah answered in the same medium. Transferred electrical payment. I work Friday. Delivery window. Why is a solvent rag in the kitchen? His reply appeared beneath hers. Because the shed does not have a sink. Leah wrote, that is not an answer. He circled it and added, we agree. They shared rooms without sharing time. When Leah cooked, Daniel worked in the shed. When he came in, she took her laptop to the downstairs room. The cottage had never seemed large, but silence found ways to stretch it. On Friday, Leah came home to find the living room patches sanded and the tools removed. A thin envelope sat beside the notebook. Inside was Daniel's check for his half of the electrical work, along with the first $900 rent check dated January 1st. She carried it to the shed. He was wrapping the restored cabinet doors and moving blankets. The maple panels glowed under fresh finish. You pay January early, she said. Daniel kept folding the blanket. Yes, it's November. I'm aware of the calendar. You don't need to pay until January. I want the record clear. The record is clear. He pulled tape across the blanket and tore it with his teeth. Are you moving out? No. The answer came too quickly. Leah held up the check. Then what is this? Rent? It feels like notice. It isn't. Do you want to leave? Daniel set down the tape. Do you want me to? No. The word surprised her with its speed. He looked at her. Leah lowered the envelope. I want you to stop deciding what information I can handle. I should have told you. Yes, I didn't know how. You could have started with words. I considered puppets. She almost smiled. That would have been worse. Considerably. The space between them softened, but not enough to cross. Daniel ran one hand along the blanket, checking the edge beneath it. June talked about the cottage as an option, not a plan. She wanted you to have somewhere that didn't depend on a promotion, a roommate, or your parents making room. That sounds like a plan. It was a wish. June confused those sometimes. So do you. Leah looked toward the cottage. Did she ask you to stay if I came? No. Did she ask you to help me? No. Did she tell you I'd need help? Daniel hesitated. Daniel. She said you'd try to do everything yourself until you got angry at anyone who noticed. That's insulting. It's also happening. Leah folded the envelope once, then straightened it. She didn't leave me a caretaker, she said. No, and she didn't leave you a replacement for her. His expression changed. Leah wished the sentence back, but it had reached him. I know, he said. He lifted the wrapped cabinet door and carried it to his truck. Caroline arrived Sunday morning without warning, this time wearing boots. She stepped out of her SUV with a bakery box and held up both hands when Leah opened the door. I brought cinnamon rolls and no forms. That is a good start. Mom wants to know if piece lasagna was effective. It was edible. I'll tell her the piece held at 350 degrees. Daniel was loading tools into his truck for the cabinet installation. He greeted Caroline, accepted a cinnamon roll, and left before she opened the box. Caroline watched his truck disappear. Did something happen? Why? He didn't insult my shoes. You're wearing appropriate shoes. He could have found something. Leah carried the box inside. The cottage looked different in clear weather. Light passed cleanly through the reglazed windows. Mike's work had removed the ugly cord along the baseboard, and Daniel's new patches waited for paint. The stove warmed the room without smoke. Even the water stain on the kitchen ceiling had dried to a faint beige ring. Caroline turned in a slow circle. This place photographs ridiculously well. It leaks. Only in person. She took out her phone. Don't. I'm taking a picture of the cinnamon rolls. You're pointing at the fireplace. Stove. Now who's making things smaller? Caroline lowered the phone. I showed a couple of your earlier pictures to Dad. Why? Because he was acting like you'd moved into a mine shaft. And he thinks the cottage changes the sale. Leah closed the bakery box. What sale? The main house and land. The cottage is a separate parcel. I know, but together the property has an old house with guest cottage thing. What thing? A buyer could use it for guests, or short-term rentals. Dad searched comparable listings. Leah laughed once. He called it a burden 2 weeks ago. He didn't know it looked like this. He knew Daniel was repairing it. He didn't believe the repairs were substantial. So now that he believes Daniel, he wants the work to benefit the estate. Caroline rubbed her forehead. I knew this conversation would go badly. You came anyway. I came because Dad wants to propose something tonight, and I wanted to warn you. The word propose sounded too much like prepare. What does he want? If you allow the cottage to be marketed with the main property, he thinks the combined sale price could increase. You'd receive the appraised portion attributable to the cottage. I already own the cottage. Yes. So his proposal is that I sell my house to improve the price of his cottage. Leah stared at her. Caroline winced. Habit. And Daniel? He would need to leave. He has a tenancy. After December, you could choose not to renew. There is no term lease. He pays monthly, then whatever notice applies. Leah stepped back from the table. Caroline's voice softened. I'm not saying you should do it. You took pictures. I took pictures because you asked me to help document the repairs, for insurance, for Daniel's work, not to package my home. I didn't know Dad would change his mind. That's exactly the point. It wasn't worth anything when it belonged to me and needed work. Now it's charming, and suddenly it belongs in the family again. Caroline's face flushed. I never said it belonged to us. You helped him price it. I found listings online. Why? Because this is what I do when there's a question. I find information. No. You find the information that makes the question yours. Caroline went still. Leah heard the cruelty only after it landed. It echoed Elaine's quiet claim in June's kitchen. Someone had to decide. Caroline closed the bakery box. Dad asked what similar cottages sell for. I looked. You could have said it wasn't yours. I did, but you still helped. Yes, Caroline said. Because I thought knowing the value might help you. Help me do what? Decide. You mean sell. I mean, stop acting as if keeping it is the only choice that proves Grandma knew you. Leah's breath caught. Caroline's eyes filled immediately, but she did not look away. You think I got the good inheritance and you got the emotional test, she said. I can feel it every time you look at my earrings or the furniture list. But Grandma didn't ask me if I wanted the main house managed and sold. Dad assumes I'll do the inventory, the calls, the estate sale, all of it. You got the place she loved, and I got another legal pad. The cottage seemed to quiet around them. Leah sat. Caroline did not. I'm sorry, Leah said. I know. No, I'm actually sorry. Caroline wiped beneath one eye with the side of her finger. That's inconvenient. I was building momentum. Leah gave a weak laugh. Caroline sat opposite her. Dad's coming at 6. Mom, too. He doesn't get to propose selling my home at my table. Then tell him. I will. But when Daniel returned at 5:30, Leah was still rehearsing sentences. He carried an empty thermos and smelled faintly of varnish. Why is your father's car coming down the lane? Leah looked through the window. Paul's SUV stopped beside Caroline's. Elaine sat in the passenger seat holding a folder. Daniel followed her gaze. What now? They want to combine the cottage with the main property sale. He absorbed that without visible surprise. They think it's worth more because of the repairs, Leah said. Because it photographs well. Daniel set the thermos on the counter. It does. That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say? That they don't get to throw you out and sell the work you used to pay Grandma. His eyes stayed on the approaching figures. It's your house, he said. You get to decide. You live here, I can live somewhere else. The answer frightened her more than it should have. Are you planning to? Daniel looked at the folder in Elaine's hands, then at June's notebook on the table. I'm planning not to become the reason you keep something you can't afford. Paul knocked this time. Daniel glanced at Leah. That's progress. Stay. I need to unload the truck. Later. This is family business. No. They made the cottage their business. You're part of the cottage. He looked as if he might challenge the wording, but Paul knocked again. Leah opened the door. Elaine entered first, holding the folder against her chest. She had also brought the clean lasagna dish. Paul followed with a rolled sheet of paper tucked beneath one arm. Caroline came in from the living room and gave them the warning look of someone who had already tested the ice. Elaine set the dish on the counter. I put your serving spoon inside. Thank you. The foil is reusable. Mom, Caroline said, I'm only saying. Paul looked from Daniel to the kitchen table. Can we sit? Leah took the chair June had favored near the window. Daniel remained by the stove until she pulled out the chair beside her. He sat reluctantly, his shoulders angled away from the table. Paul unrolled an aerial print of the property. The main house occupied the center, surrounded by fields and woods. A red line marked the stone cottage parcel, like a piece cut from the lower corner. I spoke with Bell, he began. I didn't authorize him to discuss my property. He discussed the estate's options, not yours. Then why is my parcel outlined? Because it affects access and marketability. There's a separate drive. There is. I'm not disputing that. Elaine placed the folder in front of Paul. He opened it to photographs of houses with captions and price ranges. Leah recognized 2 of the images Caroline had taken. The cottage in rain, warm light in its windows, and the living room, with June's quilt visible through the downstairs doorway. Her private unease had been turned into a sales feature. Paul tapped the aerial map. The main house alone appeals to one kind of buyer. The house with a restored guest cottage appeals to another. It isn't restored, Daniel said. Paul looked at him. It appears restored. That's not the same thing. I understand there are remaining repairs. No, Daniel said. You understand the photographs. Leah laid a hand on June's notebook. What exactly are you offering? Paul seemed relieved by the direct question. We market the property as a whole. You consent to include the cottage parcel. At closing, you receive the portion assigned to it by an independent appraisal, less its proportional sale expenses. And Daniel leaves. Paul glanced at him. The property would need to be delivered without a tenant. When? Leah asked. Before listing would be preferable. Buyers need access. It's November. We're aiming for early spring. So he gives up his home now to make photographs easier. Daniel shifted. Leah. No. I want to hear the practical answer. Paul interlaced his fingers. A relocation payment could be included. Daniel laughed softly. What? Paul asked. Nothing. You clearly have an opinion. I was wondering what number makes removing a person sound like a repair expense. Paul's face reddened. You are not being removed from property you own. Neither is Leah, apparently. She'll be appraised out. Stop, Leah said. Both men looked at her. She turned to Paul. What do you think the cottage is worth? He gave a range. The lower number was more money than Leah had ever possessed. The higher one could erase her car loan, create a substantial emergency fund, and pay rent on a decent apartment for years. Her pulse quickened despite herself. Paul saw it. This is not about taking something from you, he said. It's about converting a difficult asset into security. The phrase sounded reasonable. That was its danger. What does the main property gain? She asked. We can't know until it sells. What do you estimate? He named another range. The cottage might increase the appeal of the land, enough to benefit Paul and Caroline, as well as Leah. The proposal was not outright theft. Everyone could come away with more money. Caroline leaned over the map. I told Dad the listing pictures couldn't be used without your permission? Paul looked at her. I wasn't going to publish them. You put them in the proposal. That's different. No, Caroline said. It's just private until it works. Leah heard her own accusation returned in gentler language. Elaine smoothed the edge of the folder. Couldn't Leah keep the cottage and the estate, sell the rest? Yes, Paul said. That remains an option. It's simply less advantageous. To whom? Leah asked. To everyone, not Daniel. Paul's patience broke. This is not Daniel's inheritance. The cottage went silent. Daniel stood. That's my cue. Sit down, Leah said. He did not. You don't have to fight over me. We're not. You are. And it makes his argument stronger. What argument? That keeping the cottage is about protecting you, isn't it? Daniel looked at her for a long moment. It shouldn't be. He picked up his coat and went outside. Cold air lingered after the door closed. Paul gathered the photographs into a square stack. He's right. Do not use the first thing he says that suits you. I'm trying to separate emotion from the decision. No, Leah said. You separate out the emotions you don't understand and keep the ones you call responsibility. Paul leaned back. Leah took a thin folder from the shelf beside the refrigerator. It held the tax bill, insurance policy, electrical invoice, utility statements, and her Fairview offer letter. She placed them on the table one by one. The electrical work is done and paid. The cottage is insured. The first propane delivery came in under the estimate. I start at Fairview next Monday. My apartment deposit and final hospital paycheck cover the tax bill. Paul opened his mouth. I know that leaves me with less than $1,000 in savings, Leah said. I know the north wall could cost several thousand next year. I know the chimney flashing needs a permanent repair when the weather dries, and the drainage trench needs clearing 3 times a year. She took out the grocery bag diagram Daniel had drawn and flattened it over Paul's aerial print. Caroline smiled despite the tension. What is this? Paul asked. The system. It's a grocery bag. It's a drainage map. There's also a repair calendar and a budget. Leah opened her laptop. The spreadsheet had separate columns for ownership costs, shared utilities, routine maintenance, and repairs that could be exchanged for rent only by written agreement. She had built 12-month projections at her old wage, new wage, and reduced hour scenarios. Paul studied the screen. Elaine leaned toward it. You put in chimney cleaning every September. What about snow removal? Paul asked. Daniel has a plow attachment. If he clears the drive, we assign a value before the first storm. If he doesn't want the credit, I pay someone. Septic pumping? Due in 18 months. Roof replacement? Not for at least 8 years if Daniel's assessment is right. I'm saving monthly anyway. How much? She showed him. Paul asked questions until he ran out of immediate ones. Some answers were estimates, some were admissions that she did not yet know. Leah did not pretend certainty where there was none. Finally, he sat back. This is tight, he said. Yes, one major repair would be a problem. And you still think this is wise? No, Leah said. I think it's mine to try. He looked at her as if she had answered in a language he nearly understood. Elaine touched the grocery bag map. June would have liked this. June would have drawn the trench in the wrong place, Paul said. She would have insisted the water was wrong, Caroline added. The laugh came quietly, surprising all of them. Even Paul smiled for a second. Then he folded his hands. I don't want to watch you drown in expenses because Mom turned this place into a symbol. It was a place before any of us made it a symbol. It was an old rental. It was where she ate dinner when the main house felt empty. Paul looked toward Elaine. Elaine's gaze dropped. You knew? He asked. Not then. Mercer told you? Leah did. Paul stared at the living room, at the stove and hearth, the patched walls, the clean windows. She could have eaten with us. We invited her, Elaine said. She refused. She didn't want to be collected twice a week like a prescription. The sharpness of Elaine's answer stunned him. She removed her hand from the map and sat straighter. Your mother accepted things from Daniel she would not accept from us, she said. I hated him for that before I met him. Leah looked at her. Elaine continued, speaking toward the table. He fixed what she asked him to fix. He didn't use each repair to begin a conversation about assisted living or selling the house. He didn't make her gratitude cover his fear. Paul's voice lowered. I was trying to keep her safe. I know. You agreed with me. I did. And I resented her for making Leah feel welcome here when every visit from us became a negotiation. Leah remembered Elaine standing in June's stripped kitchen, saying June accepted things from strangers that she refused from family. Mom, Caroline said softly. Elaine's eyes shone, but her voice remained steady. Calling the cottage a burden was easier. If it was foolish, then June wasn't choosing a life we hadn't provided. She was simply being stubborn. Paul pushed the aerial print away. No one said she didn't have a life. We behaved as if the part without us was a problem to solve. Leah felt no triumph. Her mother's admission did not divide the room into people who had understood June and people who had failed. Leah had also arrived distrusting Daniel. She had also mistaken concern for a right to information. Paul looked at the notebook beneath Leah's hand. I was wrong about the rent, he said again. This isn't only about the rent, Elaine replied. His face tightened. For a moment, Leah thought he would argue. Instead, he folded the property proposal and placed it back in the folder. If you don't include the cottage, the estate will proceed without it. The sentence was formal, almost cold, but it was also surrender. I'm not including it, Leah said. Paul nodded once. Caroline closed the laptop. Then I'm not managing the whole main house sale by myself. Paul blinked. No one asked you to. You gave me the inventory list at the funeral for organization. You handed me 3 rooms and a deadline. We can hire help. Good, Caroline said. Hire it. The family order shifted by half an inch. It felt enormous. Elaine stood and carried the clean lasagna dish to the cabinet, then stopped. Does this live here now? Leah smiled. You can put it in the bottom cabinet. Her mother did. Paul rolled up the aerial print. At the door, he looked toward the shed, where light glowed behind the dusty windows. Tell Mercer the proposal is withdrawn. You can tell him, Leah said. Paul considered, then pulled on his coat. They watched him cross the yard. Caroline whispered, Should we be worried? Daniel has more tools, Leah said. Elaine gave her a disapproving look that failed because she was smiling. Paul remained in the shed for less than 5 minutes. When he returned, Daniel did not come with him. He said, Thank you, Paul reported. For what? Leah asked. For telling him directly. Paul seemed puzzled by the experience. After her family left, Leah waited at the kitchen table. The stove settled with small metallic clicks. 10 minutes passed, then 20. She went to the shed. The restored cabinets were gone. In their place sat 2 cardboard boxes. Daniel was packing his books into one of them. The proposal is withdrawn, Leah said. I know, I refused. I know. Then why are you packing? He placed a mystery novel in the box. Daniel, he kept his eyes on the books. I called a man with a room over his garage. You said you weren't moving. I said I wasn't moving Friday. That was 2 days ago. Yes. You paid January rent. You can tear up the check. Leah stepped farther into the shed. Is this punishment? No. Then what is it? He finally faced her. You asked whether June left you a caretaker, he said. She didn't. But somewhere along the way, I started acting like the cottage only worked if I was here to explain it. And you started having to defend keeping me every time you defended keeping the house. I told them, you belong here. That's the problem. Why? Because I don't know if I belong here, Leah. I know June wanted me here. I know you need the rent and the repairs. I don't know what's left when those things are removed. Leah looked at the half-packed box. You, she said. Daniel's expression faltered. She wanted to take the books out. She wanted to tell him the decision had already been made. Instead, she remembered every person who had decided what June needed and called it love. If you leave, Leah said, it has to be because you want to, not because my father made staying look selfish. Daniel looked down at the mystery novel in his hand. I don't know what I want. The honest answer hurt more than a clean departure. Leah nodded. Then don't pretend you do. She walked back to the cottage alone, leaving the shed light on behind her. Leah did not sleep much. The cottage made sounds she had already learned to identify. The stove cooling, the refrigerator cycling, branches rubbing lightly against the west wall. Daniel came in near midnight. His steps crossed the kitchen and climbed the stairs. No books were carried up. In the morning, the coffee had not been made. Leah found him by the back door putting on his boots. I'm finishing the cabinet installation, he said. All right, I'll be late. All right. He reached for his coat. Are you moving to the garage room? I haven't decided. Then your boxes can stay in the shed. They weren't going anywhere today. I'm establishing expectations. The corner of his mouth moved. You've gotten good at that. He left. Leah carried June's notebook to the kitchen table. On a clean page, she wrote the date and one sentence. Tenant has not given notice. It was petty. It also made her feel better. Her first week at Fairview left little room for private disaster. On Monday, Marisol showed her 4 storage rooms, 3 ordering systems, and a freezer containing enough sliced carrots to alter Leah's opinion of whoever had held the job before her. On Tuesday, a produce delivery arrived without onions. On Wednesday, the baker announced that the new flour was spiritually wrong. Leah asked him to test it without seeing the bag. He chose the new flour. By Friday, she had corrected 2 standing orders, reduced a recurring delivery fee, and identified why the kitchen kept running out of oatmeal, while 12 unopened cases sat in a locked closet. Marisol watched her update the count sheet. Do you ever go home? She asked. I go home. Do you enjoy it? Leah thought of Daniel's boxes in the shed. It needs work. Home usually does. Her apartment deposit arrived that afternoon. Leah transferred the tax payment before she could use the money for anything more comforting. The confirmation number appeared on her screen, dull and ordinary. She had expected triumph. Instead, she felt the amount leave her account like heat escaping through an open door. Still, the bill was paid. When she returned to the cottage, Elaine's sedan was parked beside the lane. Her mother stood at the back door holding 2 curtain rods and a folded bundle of faded blue fabric. I knocked, Elaine said. I believe you. Daniel let me in. Leah looked toward the shed. He's fixing the flashing, Elaine added. Permanently, he said. The rain had stopped long enough for the roof to dry. A ladder leaned against the west wall. Elaine lifted the fabric. These were in the linen closet. They hung in June's first apartment. I've seen them. I thought they might fit the downstairs windows. She paused. If you want them. The question was so carefully formed that Leah pretended not to notice. Let's see. They carried the curtains into Leah's room. Elaine held one panel against the window while Leah stood back. They're too long, Elaine said. You sew? I do. You could shorten them. I could. Leah pointed at the rod brackets. Those need to go higher. I'll ask Daniel. We can do it. Elaine looked doubtful. Have you installed brackets before? No, neither have I. There are instructions. Instructions are written by people who already understand the thing. That sounded enough like June that both women laughed. They installed the first rod unevenly, removed it, patched one hole, and installed it again. Elaine's stitches shortened the curtains. When they finished, the blue fabric softened the stone-edged windows without hiding them. Your grandmother would say the left side is lower, Elaine said. It is lower. She'd still be rude to mention it. Elaine gathered the thread clippings into her palm. Your father isn't coming down today. I didn't ask him to. He's embarrassed. He should try apologizing without attaching a spreadsheet. He may need practice. Leah sat on the bed. Elaine remained near the window. Do you think she left me the cottage because she thought I couldn't manage? Leah asked. No, because she knew I needed somewhere. Partly, maybe. That's not better. Elaine turned from the curtain. June didn't help people because she thought they were helpless. She helped them because she liked seeing what they did next. Leah looked toward the shed. Daniel said she was exacting about the repairs. She was exacting about toast. Elaine sat beside her. I think she gave Caroline the things Caroline knows how to manage. She gave you a place that was still becoming something. That sounds suspiciously wise. I'm grieving. It makes people grandiose. Leah leaned her head briefly against her mother's shoulder. Outside, a hammer struck metal. Elaine listened. Is he staying? I don't know. Do you want him to? Yes. Have you told him? Not in a useful way. That is hereditary. Daniel finished the chimney, flashing before dark. He came inside with cold red hands and left his boots on the mat without being reminded. Leah pointed toward the stove. There's soup. Peace soup? No. Regular soup. Good. Peace food is heavy. They ate at the kitchen table. Daniel did not mention Elaine's visit until he noticed the curtains through the open bedroom door. They're crooked. I know. Want me to fix them? No. He nodded. They look good. After dinner, he took a folded sheet from his pocket. I wrote something. Is it notice? No. Leah opened it. Daniel proposed a month-to-month lease beginning January 1st. $900 in rent. Half the electricity and propane. Shared use of the kitchen, bathroom, and living room. Exclusive use of the upstairs bedroom and shed workspace for Daniel. Exclusive use of the downstairs room for Leah. Repairs would require written approval and an agreed value before work began, except emergencies threatening safety or further property damage. Either party could end the arrangement with 60 days' notice. At the bottom, he had added a separate line. Coffee communal. Hot sauce not communal unless civilization ends. Leah read it twice. You're staying, if you agree. Do you want to? Yes. Because of Grandma? Not only. Because you need cheap workshop space. It is excellent workshop space. Daniel, he looked down at his hands. Because I've spent 4 years living somewhere I expected to lose. June made that tolerable. You made it feel like something I could participate in instead of owe. Leah's throat tightened. He continued before she could answer. And because you raised my prices. That's the important part. I have 2 more cabinet inquiries. Did you include overhead? Yes. Contingency? Yes. Deposit? The check cleared this morning. She handed back the paper. Change 60 days to 90. Why? Because finding housing takes longer than people think. Daniel met her eyes. All right. And the back entrance is mine. It's closer to your room. The front is yours. Fine. And label your food. No. That may be a deal breaker. It is not. They signed the lease in the back of June's notebook. Paul did not become easy. He remained distant through most of December, communicating through practical messages about the main house sale. But he hired an estate service after Caroline refused to manage the contents alone. He paid for it himself, rather than presenting the cost as a failure of family duty. Caroline kept the jewelry and investment account without apologizing for either. Leah stopped expecting her to. She also stopped answering every call about the main house. When Caroline asked whether Leah could spend an entire Sunday sorting linens, Leah said no. Caroline said, okay. The world did not end. Daniel moved his books back upstairs, 1 box at a time, as if hoping nobody would observe the retreat. Leah observed and said nothing. She deposited his January rent check on its proper date. They painted the downstairs room Harbor Mist. Leah resisted the color for 2 weeks because June had chosen it. Then she admitted she liked it. Daniel pointed out that agreeing with a dead woman did not legally surrender independent judgment. Leah painted a blue stripe across his sleeve. He retaliated by labeling the coffee makers Leah's control issues. The north wall remained on the urgent list. Daniel dug 2 test sections before the ground froze and found that the problem was mostly surface drainage, though neither of them trusted the word mostly. They set aside money for spring and added monthly checks after storms. There were still nights when Leah woke frightened by the thin balance in her savings account. There were mornings when Daniel resented writing estimates more than doing the work. The cottage did not become effortless just because they had chosen it. It became manageable because they kept choosing it in smaller pieces. Elaine visited again with June's kitchen curtains and asked where Leah wanted them hung. Paul came once to help carry a heavy cabinet from the main house, though he made it clear that Daniel's method of lifting was structurally questionable. Daniel told him his opinions qualified as additional weight. Paul laughed before remembering not to. On the first Sunday after New Year's, Leah set June's walnut kitchen table for 5. Elaine brought roast chicken. Caroline brought wine and, pointedly, no legal pad. Paul arrived with a new snow shovel and asked before putting it in the shed. Daniel made lentil soup as a second course. "It needs salt," everyone told him. "I regret inviting this family," he said. "You didn't invite us," Caroline replied. "My mistake was opening the door. They ate beneath the newly painted ceiling, the repaired windows held against the wind." June's blue bowls traveled around the table, filled with potatoes, carrots, and salad. Elaine sat near Daniel and asked about his cabinet work. Paul listened without correcting the prices. No one apologized again. No one declared the family healed. The main house still waited to be sold, and there would be arguments about furniture, acreage, and who had taken the good roasting pan. But the cottage was no longer called a burden. After dinner, Caroline started collecting plates. "Leave them," Leah said. "You brought the wine." "I can carry plates and wine." "I know. You don't have to." Caroline considered that, then sat again. Leah looked around the table. For years, family meals had placed her wherever space remained, near the swinging kitchen door, on the folding chair, at the end where people passed empty dishes. Tonight, nobody had assigned the seats. She sat where June once had, beside the window. Daniel reached for her empty glass and refilled it without asking. Their hands touched briefly on the stem. Outside, the stone walls held the winter dark. Inside, every repaired thing remained visible. June's uneven plaster, Daniel's careful windows, Elaine's crooked curtains, Leah's blue paint. None of it was perfect. None of it was free. It was home.